Hey, welcome back to the show. And joining us today is returning guest Michael Yon, author, former Green Beret, and America's most experienced combat correspondent. Michael, how you been? It's been some time.
Yeah, Masako and I just spent 4 months in Asia, and well, we're still in Asia. We're in Japan now, but we were in Taiwan, and then we were over in Europe. We spent more than a month with Catherine Austin Fitz in Netherlands. Then we headed up to Sweden and Norway and Denmark, and then also Germany, and then back to Thailand. And so now we're back in Japan. What we were doing was research on the exact things that are going on now. uh, Not everything happens in the Middle East, but it's all part of the same global war that's unfolding. A lot of the things that we look at in places like Panama and Texas and Mexico, it's all part of the same war, and it's quite fascinating on one side, but also well, it's a war. I mean, so it's everything that war brings, which is terrible. Right now in the Middle East is very obviously spreading, and I think ultimately you're going to end up seeing famines.
I saw you post something, if I'm not mistaken, a few days ago. It was a clip on YouTube talking about that. And you've been talking about this for years. So if you can kind of unpack your thoughts, how it ties in with these global events going on.
Yeah, people might notice I now have earphones on, but I didn't when I mentioned famine because we had a technical glitch that took some minutes to resolve. Multiple restarts there. It might be because I don't worship Israelis, of course. The magical Israelis. Everybody must worship the Israeli. Every time I don't worship the Israeli, they're like, "You're an anti-Semite." And I'm like, get out of here with that crap, dude. That so doesn't work anymore. That worked a while before. Now, anytime somebody says anti-Semite, I say, "Oh, you're just a Satanist." It's like, you know, you know what I mean? Just pull the pin out and throw it back at them. It's like it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the fact is they've been committing genocide against Gaza, and full stop. That's just as obvious as the world is round. I think the world is round. Some others disagree, but in any case, and also what's happening now this was an elective war, and it's clearly a war that's it's probably going to get the United States kicked out of the Middle East at this point. Not to mention the fact that the Gulf states are probably going to collapse from this one by one. Saudi and Bahrain and Qatar and UAE and Kuwait. I mean, this is devastating for them. So in any case, so now the Strait of Hormuz is almost certainly the most important little spot on Earth, right? There's a lot of naval chokehold, maritime chokeholds that are very important, like Panama Canal, obviously, Danish Straits, which we just left, Turkish Straits, Strait of Gibraltar, Bab el-Mandeb, obviously Suez Canal, and Horn of Africa and the Strait of Malacca, all very important, very, very important. But most of them have workarounds, except for Danish Strait. Not much of a workaround for that one, but except for the Kiel Canal. But wouldn't really count that as a workaround. But when it comes to just vital importance, the Strait of Hormuz is just it. And now keep in mind, there's more than just the energy leaving the Strait of Hormuz. There's also the fertilizer, which is absolutely vital, and also the food that goes into those countries, right? Now, keep in mind, I've spent a lot of time in those countries, except for Saudi Arabia. I've been in all the others. And most of the people in those countries are not actually from those countries. They're actually like, Filipinos, Indonesians, Americans working. The people that actually make the countries work, as workers, they're mostly from somewhere else. Most of the rich people who live there are just rich people who live there at this point. And so the countries are actually artificial countries in a sense, right? And so, but the thing is they need to import almost all of their food, and they have to desalinate water, right? Because they just don't have enough water, not even close. Water rationing just won't do it. And so they desalinate. So if you take out their energy infrastructure, their desalination plants are, they're just going to go because they don't have energy. Or if you just take out the desalination plants, right? So I think right now, I mean, I know people in all over the Middle East in various countries, and a lot of them are either actually already gone, they just got out. Others are trying to get out, desperately trying to get out in some cases. Others are just like, well, I'm just going to have fun here and, and watch what happens, because they're more like resilient types, and but at the end of the day, when the water's gone, those countries are going to collapse no matter what, right? If the Strait of Hormuz, keep in mind, the Iranians have not closed the Strait of Hormuz. I've been saying for years that, people keep talking about Iran can close the Strait of Hormuz. Of course they can. But Iran would be devastated by closing the Strait of Hormuz. Why would they want to close it? So, I mean, there's reasons why they might want to close it, but there's more reasons to keep it open. The people that would want to close it are the people that would like to cause global famines or attack, China, that sort of thing. Of course, Chinese ships appear to be actually going through, but Iran has not closed the Strait of Hormuz. You keep seeing people say that it's closed because of the insurance, right? So the people are afraid of getting their ships sank. And not only that, but if your ship gets sank there, you're also liable for all the mess that it causes and that sort of thing. It can be devastating for the company. It's not just that ship. It's also the devastation that it causes, right? And that ship and that cargo in and of itself can be pretty doggone expensive. But, you don't actually have to do anything to close it. You just have to threaten that you're going to hit them with missiles. That's all. You just have to say that there's, sea mines out there, who knows, right? But likewise, you can, just like one of the airports in America, apparently, somebody told me a couple of hours ago, maybe Oklahoma, I don't know. But one of our airports is closed because of some bomb threat that came, somebody called it in or something. And, but, this happens all over the world all the time. Like American schools and airports and train stations, they get closed because somebody calls in a bomb threat. This has happened for many, many years, right? And so, likewise with these maritime chokeholds, you just say, hey, there's mines out in the Strait of Malacca, and there's mines at the Danish Strait. These different places, you can actually halt the maritime traffic. But what I'm getting to is, let's go back to the Persian Gulf. For those who don't have maps in your head, I actually have atlases in my head because this is, I look at maps a lot. You should see how many maps I have here in my library. It's a pretty intense amount, actually. But but the point is that when you look at the map, you'll understand why, or you'll understand partly why the Strait of Hormuz is so important. But a huge amount of the energy and fertilizer that the world needs comes out of there. But as soon as that infrastructure is burned up, such as in Bahrain, the infrastructure that was destroyed, and many other places where it's being destroyed right now, you're not even going to need the Strait of Hormuz if that infrastructure is destroyed, because there's not going to be any energy to flow out of it. And if there's no energy to flow out of it, there's no money flowing into it to buy the food that needs to flow into it, right? And if the water infrastructure, the desalination plants are destroyed or disrupted because there's no energy, the people have to leave, period. And again, the people that run all that infrastructure are leaving as fast as they can right now. So you're going to end up with a sort of a dead pool. I mean, the Gulf states will be a sort of a dead pool because there'll be either the energy's not. Look, Qatar has already claimed force majeure. They're not even producing gas now. I mean, this is a big deal. These are huge deals, right? And so right now, as we speak, the lights are being turned off in the Gulf states. So keep in mind, this is permanent, or let's say semi-permanent. I mean, you could restart it again over time. But at the same time, this is not like turning on and off the light switch, because once that infrastructure is destroyed, or the people just leave, if these workers in all these Gulf states go back to Indonesia and Philippines and Texas and all these other places, they're not going to be in a hurry to go on back. And if they do, it's probably going to be at a much higher price. I mean, if they were making X dollars a day, they're probably going to want like X times 3 or something. They're not going to just lock, stock, and go back and have to deal with missiles incoming again, right? And the potential of getting into a famine in that actual area, because you just can't get out easily. And that's a very serious desert area. You're not going to just schlep across the Darien Gap, which is dangerous enough, but you're not going to walk across that desert. And if you can't fly out, and if you can't get out in some other mechanism, you're going you could have some difficulties. You know, you're going to have to be and you're not going to get millions of people out over that desert. You're going to have to get them out by airplane or by boat or something. And the war is only increasing. I just saw a video just before we came on of a drone. It looked like it was hitting the airport at Dubai, and looked like it hit right beside an airplane or hit a jet, either hit it or hit right beside it. You know, Masako and I predicted the attack window openly in writing multiple times as they started to do the buildup. From the beginning, I said, you know, I think there will be an attack, and I think the window will be, and I was publishing this in writing multiple times, many times. I think the window of attack will be the 22nd of February to the 3rd of March, with the most likely being the 3rd of March, no later than the 3rd of March. And the attack happened roughly in about closer to the 3rd of March. It was, you know, it was getting close to that. It was 2 or 3 days before, right? And so called it pretty accurately. In fact, at that point, we were at the Danish Strait. We were in Denmark. We were looking at that one. And I said to Masako, I was like, you know what? It's time to punch out of here, because if we don't leave now, I think they might kick off soon. And I don't want to take Qatar Air or Emirates, which is normally what I like to take, because those are some of my favorite airlines, is Qatar and Emirates. Because I didn't want to take, if it was just me, I would take Qatar or Emirates. And if I get stuck there, I would do war correspondent stuff. But I was with Masako, so I didn't want to, you know, potentially get stuck in a war zone with Masako. So I said, let's take Turkish Air. So we took Turkish Air and we flew through Istanbul and came out, and we got to the other side, and, you know, and they started attacking. So, I mean, we got our timing right. It helps, you know, if your analysis is right and you know what actions to take, it does make a difference. I've been doing this for decades, so I'm getting better at it, you know. And of course, I didn't know when they were going to attack. I just didn't know. I was playing probabilities, and it turned out to be right. What I'm getting to is, playing probabilities, I think we're going to end up seeing famines. And I think they're going to be substantial famines. Now, the flash, that I've been saying this for 6 years, keep in mind. I've been talking about famine for 6 years now, since 2020. And it's taken a long time to set these conditions, but they're clearly growing. The conditions are accruing, like cutting Nord Stream, groaning, and the screwworms coming up, or the fires at the, you know, chicken facilities in, you know, United States, or people like Germany, you know, destroying one of their nuclear plants recently. They blew it up and made like a big party out of it almost. They actually were, you know, live streaming, blowing up the cooling towers on one of their last nuclear plant in Germany, in Bavaria. Even after Nord Stream is cut, these fools blew up their nuke plant. I mean, this is epic level cult stuff. I mean, they might as well just go ahead and all line up and drink Kool-Aid. Because Germany is being destroyed, right? And Europe is being destroyed, and the United States for that matter. But as this energy does not flow through, and as the fertilizer does not flow through the Strait of Hormuz, and as the people leave the Gulf states because they don't want to get attacked, and they're not going to work in the oil fields, right? I mean, they're turning out the lights. And again, it's not like turning out the light. You know, it's more than that. When Masako and we went to the BASF plant in Ludwigshafen, Germany, twice before Nord Stream was blown up. And the second time we went was 14 days before Nord Stream got blown up on the 26th September, right? So we were there 14 days before, warning that we thought Nord Stream was going to, I didn't know they were going to blow it up. I thought they might hit it with cyber attack or something. Anyway, warning that something likely would happen to Nord Stream. Well, they blew it up. And you know, as I mentioned to you before, there's only two candidates for who did it, and that was United States or space aliens, right? That's the only people I can think that would have destroyed Nord Stream. And, you know, there's still Germans that think Russians did it. I mean, you can't make up this stuff again. I mean, why would Russians blow up Nord Stream? It makes zero sense. And even educated Germans will say that. It just absolutely makes no sense on planet Earth. And also, why would the Iranians close the Strait of Hormuz? Now, why would Zionists do it? Oh, many reasons, a stack of reasons, right? And blame it on Iran, a stack of reasons. Now, what's going to happen with Europe? When Nord Stream was cut and Groningen gas field was cut in Netherlands, which was the biggest gas field in Netherlands, that greatly reduced, first of all, just their natural gas that they need for energy, but also they use that natural gas for making nitrogenous fertilizers. So this has all been raising the prices of fertilizers around the world. And now with what's happening in the Middle East, it's going to substantially increase those prices. There's just not going to be enough ultimately. And with the energy prices going up, what's oil this morning? $109 per barrel, I think. And I mean, this is who knows when it's going to go. Some people say $150. I don't know, but at the end of the day, it's going up. And when energy prices go up, all prices go up. So what we're looking at is reduced capacity to make food, because energy, gas, or like natural gas that you need to make nitrogenous fertilizers and for other things. BASF, that giant chemical company in Germany, is the biggest chemical plant in the world. That's the one we got a tour in 14 days before Nord Stream was blown up. And they produce, according to BASF, 40,000 chemicals or derivative chemicals that are required for manufacturing basically everything on Earth, right? Like, most things, let's say the vast majority, 40,000, 40, not 14, not 4, but 40,000, according to BASF. Of course, I didn't audit that. But, these things are, when you cut these, pipelines that are being cut now in Azerbaijan and other places, all this is adding up, these additive pressures. And ultimately what we're looking at is there's just not going to be enough food for people on planet Earth. And what does this do? It's not like everybody's going to starve to death, but a lot of people will. And that creates a lot of HOP, human osmotic pressure, the push and pull of migration. Meanwhile, the corridors, such as the Darien Gap, we spent a year in Panama after Biden was installed. I mean, coming and going, I'd spend 2 or 3 months there at a time, or 2 or 3 weeks, different times, but in total about a year since Biden was installed. And a lot of that was in the Darien Gap, and a lot of the other time was at the canal and other places out there, just checking out, because Panama is also very important. But you see all the infrastructure for the invasion, the migration, the invasions that are coming through Darien Gap. All that infrastructure is still in place. The IOM is still there, the International Organization for Migration, United Nations, HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, more than 60 different NGOs. They're still there, right? Doctors Without Morals, Red Cross, they're all there, right? Likewise, and you see it all over the world, it's the same. So as this HOP unfolds, the human osmotic pressure, there is no doubt that you're going to see, in my mind anyway, based on just the fact pattern, I think, let's just say there's never a case when there's actually no doubt, but let's just say there's an extremely high probability that you're going to end up seeing people coming back through many routes. Darien Gap, coming up on the beaches of Florida from Bahamas and Cuba and other places, right? Haiti, coming across Canada or into Canada. There's just so many different ways. People don't have to come through the Darien Gap, by the way, to get to come across the Mexican border. Many will go into Nicaragua first, especially a lot of the Cubans and a lot of the Haitians now go through there, and some others, they'll bypass Panama and Colombia and all that. And so you're going to end up, I think, seeing a much larger flood of people go into Europe. Like, it's already devastated with the invasions. But I think you're going to see it's going to be the coup de grace, right? And I think the same with the United States, because you got to keep in mind, Trump has turned out to be exactly what I've warned about for 10 years. Again, so many people have said, you've turned your back on Trump. And again, I'm always saying, no, find it. Never happened. When Newt Gingrich called me up probably 10 years ago, before the first election, trying to get support. When was that? 10 years ago, I guess. And he called me at my office in Thailand and somehow got my number. And I said, I'm not going to vote for a Clinton, obviously, but you have to have somebody better than Trump. I mean, seriously, Trump. And anyway, because, you can see yourself and you can see your opposite. If somebody is very, very similar to you, you'll be able to sense it. If they're really the opposite of you, that'll pop off the page, right? And Trump is the opposite of me, so he pops off the page. To me, he's like, we're not in any way similar to each other, except we both use oxygen, right? And other than that, not much. Really, we don't have many similarities, so he pops off the page to me. So my predictions on Trump have turned out to be staggeringly accurate. Pick anything that I've written, just throw 100 darts, find it and audit it, right? You're going to give me an A++, right? How do I do that? People are asking. It's easy. I just imagine what I would do, and I picked the opposite. And he does it. He just does it. I mean, so he's clearly a Zionist. When I said that on an Ivor Cummins interview in 2024, I was over in Buenos Aires. I was with Ivor Cummins and Doug Casey's condominium, actually, which is an incredible place, great library. And I said Ivor and I were chatting about this morning, actually. I said, when I said Trump was a Zionist, I mean, I wasn't trying to be controversial. I'm just saying the fact, and it's very, very important to get this stuff right because it's consequential in your prediction, your ability to analyze. If you're not brutal with the facts, you will not be a good analyst, period. There's no chance. You just have to call the ball where it lands, no matter what, right? And no matter what, he's a Zionist, right? Now, I said that, and Ivor didn't run the interview for months. But months later, it became obvious that, Trump was a Zionist. It may have been like more closer to a year later, I guess. And then he ran the interview, right? But the point is it is very important to get that right because we need to know what are they up to. There's different oligarchical systems that are fighting. For instance, the Zionists are fighting CCP, Chinese Communist Party. Now, as somebody just told me, actually an advisor to Hegseth just told me like 30 minutes ago, 45 minutes ago, that, the people that are going against Israel typically or say going against Zionists, let's say, actually is more accurate is what he said was Zionist, which is different than Israel. It's related, but it's different, way different actually. And, but he said those tend to be pro-CCP. And I said, I've noticed that too. The people that go against Zionists tend to be pro-CCP. And I said, that's true, but I'm not. I've written 3 books on Chinese information war. 3 books, right? I could talk about Chinese information war all day long. We could change the conversation and talk about that for a week, right? You know what I mean? I've written 3 books on it. I've been all over China researching it and all over Asia and yada, yada. So, so I mean, I'm not pro-CCP. I'm the opposite. But I do recognize that they're fighting each other. If you look at what's happening in Panama, as an example, where I spend so much time, that's Zionist versus CCP. That's not America versus CCP. Trump is Zionist. He represents the Zionist. Down in Argentina, it's Zionist versus CCP, right? Buenos Aires is one of the biggest Zionist and also Jewish cities in the world. I mean, it's almost up there with Tel Aviv and New York. I mean, it's like probably 3rd place, I'm guessing. It's somewhere along those lines, actually. You could look it up, but it's in that category. And so when I went to CPAC in November or December of 2024, they started off with Viva Israel, no, Viva Argentina, Viva Estados Unidos, and Viva Israel, right? That was at CPAC, the big Republican convention down there in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. I went to it. I went to it because I was close by. And I also went to a cannabis expo that they had, huge cannabis expo. And because I was going down to Argentina to examine where people are constantly asking me, where should I go? That sort of thing. Actually, you should probably stand and fight your ground and save your country. That's what you should do. But if you're going to run away, I mean, I looked at Argentina, and the cannabis expo that we went to in Buenos Aires, which was clearly sponsored by the Argentine government because the names of all these government ministries are up there we photographed them, like Ministry of Health, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Defense. All these were open sponsors of the cannabis event. You can't, or their names are up there. They didn't remove them, that's for sure. But it looked like, it was right there on the major sign as you went into the expo. I mean, it's clearly right in the middle of a big exposition hall there in Buenos Aires. That tells me right there that they're under massive attack by the intoxicants. Intoxicants are one of the main WMD used in war. They're up there with cluster bombs. You know what I mean? Intoxicants are unbelievable. They're slower acting, but they're more complete. They're much more complete. They drain you of your wealth. They drain your family of their wealth. They drain the communities. And anyway, not to go into that, but anyway, at the end of the day, you've got Zionist and CCP. CCP and Zionists are fighting each other on various battlefronts, such as in the United States, Canada, Panama, Argentina. They're fighting a lot for routes and resources. They're fighting over ports and that sort of thing down in Panama Canal and Panama Canal, Maersk and all that. That's why we were just up in Denmark. I call Denmark. I call it Denmarsk because Maersk basically owns Denmark, right? Denmark doesn't own Maersk. China owns Costco, the big shipping company, Chinese shipping company, but Denmark basically, Maersk basically owns a country called Denmark. That's why I call it Denmarsk. Maersk is a massive logistical company. Shipping is just notice that Maersk was one of the first shipping companies that said we're not going through the Strait of Hormuz, right? And so anyway, there was a reason why we were up in Denmark, and it was all related to this. But what's going to happen? I think what will happen is we will end up in famine, and we will end up with open borders, which they're still open. Trump has not done any mass deportations. It just has not happened. There is no sign that it's happening. I was just talking with an ICE guy a few hours ago. There's zero sign that it's happening. Zero, right? It is absolutely not happening. In fact, Trump is allowing more people to come into the United States. He's just doing it on visas, right? And there's still people that support him because that's how cults work, right? So at the end of the day, this is, he's there to basically burn down America. If you want to destroy the United States and Israel, because I think Israel itself is being used as a sacrificial lamb to the Zionists actually as well, because, October 7th was clearly a Mossad/Zionist attack that they used to cause us ability to clear out Gaza, right? So they allowed all those people to be killed, which obviously, the Zionists did that. And, they used Hamas to some level, but it was a Zionist attack. It appears to me that they're planning to supersize that and do all of Israel like that. They don't care about Israelis. Zionists don't give a crap about Jews. They don't care about, although many Zionists are Jews. Many Zionists are atheists, and the bulk of Zionists seem to be, or definitely are Christians. But when it comes to the leadership of the Zionist real hardcore movement that's, going to war with Iran, that's going to be a lot of actually Jewish Zionists and atheist Zionists. Keep in mind, Jews and Zionists kill each other daily. They've been doing it forever. Not forever. I think the first person that the Zionists assassinated was a Dutch Jew in the 1800s. A Zionist actually killed a Dutch Jew because he didn't go along with the plan. I mean, the Jews and Zionists have been killing each other for a long time. They kill each other in large numbers. They hate each other, right? And so it gets kind of complex, I understand. But what we're looking at, though, are people that want to demolish the world. We've got also three groups that want Armageddon, right? We got a lot of Christian Zionists, which is the way I was raised, which think that, God's chosen people, the Israelis, let's say the magical elves. This is a bong, by the way, that I bought I think in Japan, either Japan or Thailand. And you can't make up this stuff. They're selling this for kids in stores, a bong, all these things. Little football player bong. This is actual warfare, right? That, these are, we've got so many of these things. Masako and I are collecting them because we want to use them at times like this and show people. But the magical elves, we've got three different major groups that are fine with Armageddon for different reasons. Some Christian Zionists want to pull all the Jews over to that magical land, and there's your chance to convert. If not, then death to you, right? And obviously, a lot of the Jews realize that, and they're like, hey, these Christian Zionists who help with all this money and stuff, all they want to do is get us over here to get us slaughtered off or converted. You know what I mean? So they're like, they're not buddies. They're not even frenemies. They're enemies that, leech off each other for various reasons. And but they work like that, even though they want to kill each other. And so then there's obviously some Jewish Armageddonists, let's call it. And then there's some Shia as well. So there's a lot of Shia that also are looking at the end of time. So you got three different groups here that are all like ready to all do Armageddon from different directions, right? At the end of the day, the chances of nukes flying are considerable, right? And also, I don't mean a 1 in 10 chance. I'd say at this point greater than 50%. I would not doubt also that there's a false flag first in a place like the United States, nuclear, right? Because keep in mind, if Israel or the United States just flat-footed launches nuclear attack on Iran, that's a pretty bold move, because at that point Russia and China and anybody else with nukes are going to be like, wow, we're next. I mean, they just like from completely out of left field did a nuke on a country because they could. Now, how would you react if you had a bunch of hypersonic missiles with nuclear weapons on them? I mean, you might actually start lighting us up, and hopefully hoping that we don't get anything else off the ground, right? I mean, that would be it for the United States, and we would never talk again because satellites would be gone, and that would be that, right? And there would be obviously for the survivors, it would be Road Warrior stuff, Planet of the Apes, and so now that could happen. Now, one way to avert just a global exchange would be to do like, basically a giant October 7th with nuclear weapon or weapons in the United States. Like, I don't know, nuclear weapon blows up New York or Miami or someplace, right? And Los Angeles, someplace just blows it up. Some place that they don't want to have, really. Say they probably would want to keep Los Angeles. Maybe not. I don't know. And I can see reasons why they wouldn't want Los Angeles, actually. And they'll probably cack one off or more in places that they wanted to get rid of, and which would be opposition and that sort of thing. And then now the United States, hey, we just lost a city or two or three or whatever. When Russia and China see that, which they would see it within, like 10 seconds, they would realize that we're about to respond, and it could be incredibly unpredictable. What would they do at that point? Would they pile on and go ahead and launch on us? Or would they watch us say, hey, Iran just nuked us, another October 7th, but this time nuclear with millions dead, and watch the United States, put multiple nuclear weapons onto Iran or even others, but not respond? I don't know. Nobody knows. And it doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't, we're talking game theory here with nuclear weapons, right? We're talking about people that are irrational and people that are actually straight up evil. I mean, these core level, the really core level Zionists are hardcore evil. They're very similar to the Agori cannibals that I tracked in India and Nepal and other places. They're very similar to them. The Agoris, they believe, and I've interviewed many of them at great length, they believe that Agor is a religion, Aghor, Alpha Golf Hotel Oscar Romeo, right? Agor. In Sanskrit language, it means not terrible or not terrific. They think that everything that the God or the gods make is perfect. So if you're disgusted by anything, you're disgusted by God. So these Agoris, of which there's still plenty, including some Americans, they believe that they should do ultimate evils, right? Anything, absolutely anything, right? And they will achieve what's called moksha. They'll get release. They'll get infinite power, right? Like no boundaries, no rules, no ethics, no morals, nothing, right? And when I look at the core Zionists, not the periphery, a lot of the periphery are probably good people, but they just don't really know what the game is. And you know what I mean? I'm supposed to support Israel, so I do type stuff. You know what I mean? They're not necessarily evil people. They've got day jobs and stuff, and, they believe what they see. So, but they're not necessarily bad people at all. They might be quite good. But the core level ones, the ones who run Epstein Island, the ones who push the death jabs, right? The ones who are obviously creating global genocide with death jabs, abortion that's basically almost retroactive. I mean, Israel is a huge abortion state. It's a huge drug state, highly drugged up people, and the country lets them do it. I mean, I've never seen people smoke more dope than Israelis. I mean, they're like, country of Bob Marley's, and they've quite lost their mind as a collective, as a country. You can see that when you're there. It's uncomfortable. And they'll always blame, it's everybody hates us or whatever, it's like, I don't know. It's the whole missiles thing and, torturing prisoners and whatever, it's like, Epstein Island, pedophilia. Yeah. Kind of builds up some animosity, and obviously always professional victims are always predators. Right. And so you can see that thing going on, but let's get to the core level Zionists. They want ultimate power. They don't care what they have to do to get it. Right. They have, like gold fever, except for power. right? And they believe that through doing evil, you will attain that power, exactly as the Agoris think, right? So in other words, you don't have to, if you had somebody that you wanted to be a made man in your organization because you're going to make him Secretary of Defense or a director of FBI or something like that, they're going to take him off to, to the place where, all right, you're going to have to do some act in front of all of us and the cameras here that, is just over the top, absolutely beyond the pale of everything on planet Earth. And you're going to have to do it to prove you're one of us. And once you do that, you are definitely one of us because you ain't ever leaving this pack at that point, right? And so, and that's how people that want ultimate power, there's nothing they won't do, especially if they feel safe in that evil group, right? But the problem with dancing with the devil is you are dancing with the devil. And who dances with devil? Other devils, right? If you're dancing with the devil, you're the devil. You're another devil, right? And devils kill each other. They don't have rules. The only rules that they actually have are like law of the jungle. If you're sitting at the table with them, it's because you have something of power. You have power that they want. But as soon as they feel like they've got more power than you do, they'll take it, right? So everybody knows that. It's an uncomfortable environment, right? It's very uncomfortable because as soon as they have the advantage, they'll kill you too. They'll kill each other. It's Game of Thrones, but on an epic scale, right? That's what they're doing. They're playing Game of Thrones. They don't care if 1 billion people die. They'll laugh at it. They take enjoyment from that. Look at him, Trump mocking the people he got to take the jab, mocking them, right? Just, he holds MAGA in contempt. He'd always tell the snake parable. Look, you knew I was a snake when you picked me up. He's telling you who he is. He's saying, I'm the snake. You knew I was a snake when you picked me up and I bit you. You old fool. He told that thing over and over and over, right? That's what he's doing. They hold each other in contempt. They don't care. They want global famine. They want to see. Notice they've started over the last few years, minimum, to normalize cannibalism. You'll see it pop up and all over the place, like cannibalism this, cannibalism that. It's often popping up like it never did in the past, right? In the past, it would pop up occasionally. Now it's like a normal background. You just see it occasionally, right? In some regard, But the idea that they would take at Epstein, let's say all these children that are disappearing after they come across the border, where are they going to? How can you disappear that many children? And they're coming into, the Walmart at Brownsville, Texas, the former Walmart. We've been there at Southwest Key. We've been there, video, photograph. You can't, as soon as you approach there, the guards are running out to engage you, right? But that's like right downtown, right next to a McDonald's, where, Trump likes to, advertise. And, the idea, where do these kids go? Where do they vanish? Huge numbers of children just vanish into thin air, right? Are they doing something with them? Are they processing them? Are they drinking their blood? It wasn't very long ago that this sounded completely crazy and insane to the normal people. And to me, the whole Pizzagate thing, I'm like, now, of course, as time has unfolded, and also I've tracked down those Agoris and studied them quite in detail years before I went to the wars. It's actually obvious. It's obvious that Epstein Island was like the Zionist version of Agor. I mean, they're doing everything that you want. It was Fantasy Island, dark Fantasy Island. Remember the old show, Tattoo, Zip Plane, Zip Plane. It was Fantasy Island. You can do anything you want out there. What happens on Epstein Island may or may not stay on Epstein Island. But, if you want to be in the club, you got to go do dark things with dark boys and girls, right? And then there you are. You're in the club. The riches that can accrue to you are massive. Minor billionaires can become major billionaires and possibly even trillionaires, right? They'll get to the point where they buy and sell countries like Ireland in the future. Country stores or company stores used to be normal in the United States. There were company stores all over the United States, at least hundreds. I don't even know. I mean, I've got quite a few books on them there, but there's one still, at least in Arizona. I think it's a copper mine. It may be owned by Robert Friedland, And but again, there's nothing bad per se about a company town. So I mean, the way that company towns often form is, there's copper out there and it's in the middle of a desert. I mean, how are you going to get it out of there? You got to get workers out there. Well, I mean, what is the Middle East? What is the Gulf states? They're all company towns. I mean, I never thought about it like that before, but something on the microphone, but as I explain it, those are actually company towns. Like if you've ever been to Qatar or whatever, because it's not that many people that are actually from there to begin with. And it's, people that you've packed in to work at these facilities, right? And to service the few people that actually live there in Qatar or Saudi Arabia or whatever. So that's what company towns were. So imagine you've got all this copper out in the middle of the desert in, Arizona, and there's no road out there, no water, you know what I mean? Somebody's got to supply it somehow. So a company will come in if it's, if they found enough copper, and they'll build the houses and maybe build a railway out to it, at least a road. And then, they'll start, building up, they'll build the schools, church, they'll own the preachers maybe, and they'll own the little clinic, hospital, they'll know everything because it's the company's everything, right? It is a company town. Now keep in mind, these company towns, so, when you get in debt, you owe the company store, it's like in the army, you get very low or free rent even, you're not going to want to leave. You're kind of a slave. You can certainly get to become a slave if you get into debt, which they will encourage you to do to get that new truck. You want a big old pickup truck? Well, we got special loans. Next thing you know, you're in debt. You're in the company system. Now you're like one of the farm animals for the company town, right? And again, there's nothing per se bad about a company town. Like we visited a coal mine near Nagasaki maybe 6 months ago, and it was an old company town for a long time. That's the only way to get that coal out of the ground. It's an island out there. It's desolate. It's not a very nice place to live. So it took a lot of money to do it. But then they often become bad, right? Like, and so you can buy and sell company towns. You can hey, here's a copper mine. I'm done with it. I want to sell it. Somebody want to buy it? You can buy it. And all the people, we got the schools, everything's up and running. It's a turnkey company town with sheep, and so there you go. And that's what we became, like company countries. You look at Denmark, it's like a company country. You look at the Gulf states, again, they are like company countries. I mean, they're all the workers are from somewhere else. They take the passports in some of these countries from Filipinos and Indonesians and Malaysians that come over. They'll take their passports. You can't just run off at the airport and leave. Before you leave, they have to check the computer to see if you owe anybody money or anything like that, right? So, I mean, you are effectively trapped. And so now keep in mind, imagine this is Ireland and it's 20 or 30 years from now. And Ireland's been properly decimated. Irish are all gone. Maybe a few kept in a zoo for, this is what the Irish used to be like. They're feeding them whiskey. Like, see, he's a drunk Irish guy, and this is how we beat him, right? I mean, that sort of stuff. And, let's say some trillionaire buys Ireland. I like Ireland, and he just buys it. And they, they're doing whatever they do in Ireland. And they buy the Isle of Man, buy Cuba or whatever. I mean, that's the kind of world that they're going. That's what they want. They want a world where the minor billionaires are basically the help, right? And the major billionaires and the trillionaires, that's the people at the super ultra country clubs, which are ran by people that, if you get out of line, there's not going to be any go to courtroom and sue anybody. You'll just be fed into the meat grinder and you'll fertilize the chickens. You know what I mean? I mean, this is like, no kidding, serious, beyond 1984. That's what they want. That's what ultimate evil wants, is ultimate power. But there are some people in their way, like the Russians, the Iranians, the Chinese. Even as bad as some of these groups can be, they are not going along with the program. And Iran is, again, the Strait of Hormuz, arguably the most important little spot on planet Earth, the Strait of Hormuz, right? And in Iran itself, beyond Strait of Hormuz, is an incredible corridor, and has been for many centuries, right? It's just incredibly valuable. What I think you're going to see is the Gulf states will collapse, and because I mean they're going to cut off their water. There's going to be a huge reduction in availability of fertilizers globally and energy as well. And with a long flash to bang, you're going to end up seeing food shortages go into famines. You're going to see massive amounts of directed migration to finish off final places like America, which is still not sufficiently over the demographic hump, but they're pushing it. Like, a lot of Europe is just gone. I mean, they're gone. Like Luxembourg is over 50% foreigners. We stayed there for, I don't know, more than 10 days, almost 2 weeks, maybe. Little Luxembourg is like, I don't know, 55% maybe. I don't know. It's some huge number. And then that'll be it. Then you'll have groups that all over the place that none of them have the critical mass to be in control. And you can pit them against each other and make them fight each other. You can spray them with poison. You can poison their water. You can poison their food. You can poison everything. If you don't like the number of people that you got, reduce them. And kings have done this for, again, centuries. I have books on it, old books where they're talking about how to reduce your population. This is old technology, or not technology, old techniques, or Victorian famines. I mean, the British did it. And the British did this to Ireland, right? I mean, 1845-ish to 1854-ish, depending on when you want to put the bookends of the actual huge last big famine. But reducing populations through famine and through war and through other mechanisms is old stuff. I've got a book here. Well, I haven't read it yet. It came in some months ago before we left on this latest trip. And it's about Bulgaria, Greece, and Turkey swapping parts of their populations. They're swapping, like, you take these people, we'll take those people. It's a book from 1932. So, I mean, all this is old. The ideas aren't new. It's not conspiracy theory. It's just like, it's normal farming for people at that level. And again, they look at their populations as sort of like farm animals that, hey, we need more sheep, get more sheep, let more guest workers in. We've got too many guest workers, get rid of them, So this is just normal business. And it's on a huge scale. We've got obviously AI that, it looks like the tech bros are trying to take over from the banking bros is what it looks like. And it's unclear, that'll end up being its own war. If so, I mean, some AI places apparently just got blasted over in the Middle East. I'm curious why they even built stuff there. I've often thought when I was doing a lot of war stuff in Iraq and Afghanistan, I thought, it'd be good to just get a condo in like Dubai, because then it's easier for me to get out of the wars and transition over to the other war. Because I didn't like going straight back and forth between Iraq and Afghanistan. I like to have because I needed different gear and different ones, and you know what I mean? And it's good to take a break and go finish up the writing or whatever I did from Afghanistan and then shoot over to Iraq and then back. It's good to have a little transition point. Because sometimes I go right back and forth and I realize it was too much. But I thought about getting a condo there, and I thought, they're super expensive. And eventually this place is going to be at war too. I could just, you never let a calm day on a Florida beach make you think that that's not hurricane territory. You know what I mean? It's like, that's hurricane. And same with Poland and places like that. Europe, I lived in Europe for about 6 years. And at some point I realized, Europe is the white people Middle East. Especially if you're in a place like Poland, where the invasions naturally go through. That's just where the tides come through Poland. Nice flat ground between, Europe and Asia. If you're sitting in a place where a lot of humans live, especially if it's got anything valuable under its feet, or if it's between valuable things like on an important route, you can pretty much expect sooner or later you're going to be in a war. But some places like Poland, in places in the Middle East, they're, especially with all that energy, all the oil and remember, wars are about routes, resources, and ideology, right? So you've got massive ideological differences in the Middle East, and ideology boils down to human resources, actually. But you've got, Sunni versus Shia, different types of Shia, different types of Sunni. You got Jews, of course. You got Christians. You got Yazidis. You got different groups, Zoroastrians. You got all these different groups. You know what I mean? There's just like, some fish don't mix well in the same aquarium, and there's a lot of money involved. and there's huge routes involved, and they got some very serious weapons and the willingness to use them. Bottom line, I think famines.
Wow, I am literally just taking all that in right now. Okay, so wow, I guess I'll start off in saying that with the whole Trump thing, I people that are still with him, I don't know what to say. I really don't know what to say. I mean, it's very evident that he's part of that Chabad Lubavitch clique, which I'll also say tangentially. I have heard that Chabad also controls Russia. I've heard that Putin, from an early age, was raised in a Chabad Lubavitch environment, and the same thing over in Iran. I am leaning towards. I don't know if you. I know you're running around all the time, but I have been going deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole of the power structure, the power matrix, Michael. And I've come to the conclude. At this current iteration that I'm at is that you've got the Sabbatean Frankist Jesuit, perhaps some other clique that is basically trying to foment and stir the pot, depopulation. They're into the trafficking, the drugs. That's why we continue to see forever wars. Why we continue to see a lot of the challenges plaguing society, despite being in the 21st century. And that's basically the destination I've arrived at. And I think that, I know you mentioned about the CCP and the Zionists earlier. I mean, would you even make the case that perhaps even there's an entity or a clique above them that's, just kind of prodding them along, getting them to fight?
You can sense it. I mean, you can sense that it's there. I don't know what's doing. It's like you can sense that, you can tell something, there's another layer, and you can just, it's there, but I don't know what form it's in. I don't know exactly who's who in the zoo with that. It's going to take some time. There's, as you can see, a lot of people like me who used to support Israel. I was raised in an environment that supported Israel. That's just how I was raised, right? So it took a long time to come to the realization, like, hey, this isn't the place I was taught about, especially when I went there. And then eventually I just like, wait a minute, these aren't our best allies, at all. In fact, they want us dead. And they want to bleed us of all of our wealth in the meantime, right? And and then there's people that want the same for Israel because of ideological reasons. But there is some other level, at a minimum, at least one. Now, keep in mind, this other level has always been going on. If you look at, say, Spain and Portugal, and, Portugal started being sort of a maritime power in 1415 when they went after, they left and attacked Ceuta, which is now in Morocco. And so Portugal was the first, that was sort of out of the Mediterranean, maritime, going for it. And the next thing you know, the Portuguese are going around Africa, and they end up all over, in India and even Japan and that sort of thing. But as time unfolded, the Spanish got involved in 1492ish. We remember that one guy, Christopher Columbus, and then not that he was Spanish, but not to go into that. But then you get in 1494 in the Treaty of Tordesillas that the Spaniards and the Portuguese, both of whom were Catholic, they were starting to go into competition. So the Pope Alexander III, right? And he started going, wait a minute, my boys are going to fight each other. And that level, at the Pope level, he wants to deconflict between the Catholics and between the Portuguese and the Spanish, right? So he wants them to not be fighting each other over the same land. That doesn't make sense for the Pope. He wants, hey, Portuguese, you play over there, and Spanish, you play over there, but you just have to take these, you just have to take, these missionaries with you, right? And you have to pay, you have to pay the Pope. You have to pay the man, because that was the next level of architecture. Then about 30 years later, he did the other Treaty of Saragossa, right? And between them, and that's when you see, that's why Brazil speaks Portuguese today, because in the original treaty, that was back when they didn't know much about the world at all. They didn't even know exactly where Japan was, or anything like that. There was just rumors. But 30 years later, the Portuguese were running around over there, and the next thing the Pope draws that other line. So you had, he was dividing the world between Spain and Portugal. And again, that's why, part of the Americas speak Spanish, and Brazil speaks Portuguese. Now you go over to Philippines, and that's why Philippines, that's why it's called Philippines. It was named after King Philip, Spain, right? And so what I'm getting to is this was all part of that other structure, was the Vatican at that point, right? And then we get into about as time goes on, maybe 1540 or so, in that time frame. The Jesuit academics out there can correct me, but right about that time is when the Jesuits start to, the new music starts to play and the Jesuits show up. I think Xavier may have showed up in Japan in 1539. I'm sorry, my memory's off, but Xavier, he was Jesuit, right? And the Jesuits, those are super educated. They were like the special forces of missionaries. They multiple languages, really academic, map making and all kinds of stuff, right? And they, they ended up in Japan and other places. And actually, Masako and I, about 5 months ago, before we just did this long 4-month trip, we were down in Nagasaki, and we actually talked with a Jesuit priest there, and he led us into his sort of private library, and we spent the afternoon talking with him and looking at books and he was very helpful, actually. But so the Jesuits are still thick down in Nagasaki, because you got to keep in mind when the Jesuits came in, they were power centers down in that area for a while, but they, the Japanese started calling them Nanban, which means Southern barbarians, because like the Portuguese would kidnap people and, rape and murder and all that. But they kicked the Nanban out. They let the Dutch come in at a little island down there, and they made a tiny little trading post for them. So the Dutch, who were Protestant, they weren't proselytizing. They let the Dutch travel, or they couldn't travel, actually. They had to stay on the island. But when you did your sort of visa run, you checked into Nagasaki. It's a little island down there, and it took them like 3 months to get up to Edo, which was the old name for Tokyo, and like 3 months back. It was like 6 months for a visa run. You know what I mean? It was like, and you had to be under, basically with guards the whole way, that sort of thing. And anyway, but they let the Dutch stay there for, several centuries, right? Until 1854 is when the United States opened up Japan. But what I'm getting to is there were other structures, obviously, and the Vatican was a big structure there for a while. But then keep in mind, then the Protestants get involved. Then they have their structure, because the Dutch were from a different structure. They were Protestant, right? You have the 30 Years' War and all this different stuff. There's different structures and there always seems to be another structure that evolves. Anytime there's more than 2 or 3 major groups fighting, it seems like another structure evolves out of that. It's like another structure grows on top of them to organize both of those or more structures. I don't know how this life works, but it's quite fascinating. And I go for these long walks and try to figure out how these things work. Sometimes you just have to go for long walks and be quiet and try to sort this stuff out. Because I've read so many books, I've gone and seen so many people in so many places, but what you really have to do to put this stuff together is get good sleep and go for long walks, because these structures clearly have evolved over time. They've been emergent, right? Some people say the Jesuits are actually Jews, and it goes, and the thing is they probably, some of this will almost certainly be true, because anything with power will end up getting infiltrated. Whatever it is, Washington, D.C., you think something with that much power is not going to draw, people that want power? They're going to go to it like a photophilic moth. I mean, they're going to go straight to the lantern, right? Anytime there's power, the people are going to go to it. And then they're going to infiltrate each other. Infiltration's not like a one-way street. They'll be, like this one's like we're intermarrying them, but meanwhile they're intermarrying you. They grow together. It's like everything you touch touches you. And that's true of religions as well. So you have religions that are constantly splitting into denominations or sects or whatever you want to call them. And they're constantly fusing in syncretically, right? Into syncretisms, right? Like when you're out with the Yazidi people. Yazidi are like, to me, they seem like I studied them up quite a bit before I went out with Yazidis up in northern Iraq. And I'm like, man, this is a combination of like Christianity, obviously, and Islam, obviously, and Zoroastrianism, and it looks like some Hinduism sprinkled in there and some Buddhism. It's like a it's like a stew of syncretic stew, it's quite fascinating. Of course, they'll tell you that the Yazidis will tell you they're the oldest religion in the world. And I'm like, you're going to have to bring that up with the Hindus, you guys can sort that out. I'll just listen to you talk. So anyway, what I'm getting to is you see, these structures, these power structures evolve over time, and some come and go and seem to just vanish, and others, they just keep morphing. And like the Catholic Church is obviously still very powerful, but it's obviously, splits, and also, and how many parts of it are there? I don't know, because, who would know? Would the top Jesuit priest even know? I don't know. I mean, how would he know? How would the top Zionist even know? How are the biggest expert on Zionism in the world? I bet you if you had 10 of them, the top 10 of them at a table, they'd get in a fist fight talking about how it's structured, because they probably don't actually truly know. Like, how does a jungle work? Who's king of the jungle? I mean, it's a jungle out there, and it's constantly moving too. It's not like it's constant. It's not like it's static. It's not like this thing sits still and you can it's going to stay still for you and you can study it. No, this thing's constantly changing. And it's the same with the human architecture, these human ecosystems that we live in.
Yeah, I'll comment in that, because we're touching on the power structure here, because you hear a lot of people talk about it's the Jews. You hear about it so much, but I started genuinely just trying to understand, like, why do I hear this so much? What's going on? And yeah, it's led me to, well, I mean, that assertion is obviously erroneous. It's really, to get more granular, that Sabbatean Frankist, and then there's that kind of cultish. There's a cultish supremacist element within Chabad, and then that ties in with the Vatican and other. It ties in with City of London, with I mentioned Vatican already, and then DC, and that's kind of like the triumvirate, or whatever you want to call it. And that's kind of, from what I've gathered, my mental model. And then some say it's something out of this world, as far as directing it. So that's where I'm at. And you meant
we're all trying to figure it out, man. We're all trying to figure it out. It's like,
yep, yeah. Yeah, and then I was also going to mention, okay, you covered a myriad of things in the first 50 minutes. So I'm just collecting my thoughts. And you meant the famine thing there. So it sounds like if you're in a big city, get out. That's the memo I'm getting from you, basically?
If you can. I mean, not everybody's going to be able to do it. Not everybody's got the ability or I mean, where are you going to go? Not everybody, say everybody leaves New York City. Where are you going to go? Out and live in a field somewhere with pick pecans off the tree? And this is the thing. I mean, a lot of people do have the ability to go, and but I wouldn't stay in a big city. But then that's been my policy since day one. I don't like big cities, but I like the jungles. I like being out there with the Indians in the Darien Gap. Actually, I feel quite nice out there. But the most people, what are they gonna actually do? They have to somehow support themselves, right? So you're gonna have to actually. I know people don't like to hear this, but the best thing to do is generally going to be to stand your ground and not let the thing run you over. I mean, the advice to run away isn't necessarily the best advice. The best advice can be stand your ground. You're already in a great country if you can keep it that way. But where are you going to go if you let America just go and be weaponized against you? It's going to kill you. I mean, the way things are going at this point, I mean, evil people are getting in charge of some serious weapons. Mounting AI along with weaponized, supply chains and drones and all kinds of stuff. The ability to, I mean, the best thing to do is don't let it happen, is to stand your ground, actually. I mean, that's why I've spent so much time over the border. I've been all over the entire U.S. southern border. I've been all over America looking at this, not just looking, but telling people, like, here, don't let this happen. You know what I mean? Don't let the drugs on your streets. Don't let this stuff on your streets. I mean, that's a huge fight back right there. If you're high and you're on drugs and you're drunk and you're watching porn all the time, you're just useless. I mean, you know what I mean? You're not only that, you're part of the problem. You're in the way, right? You're in the way. You're absorbing supplies and stuff, and you're probably voting for Trump or Biden or Obama. And you probably, whichever one pops up is your hero, Okay, my hero, who's your next hero? Next hero. All right, it can't be this guy again. This time, we're tired of yellow hero. Let's go for this one. That's it. You know what I mean? Did you want that one or this one? They always hit you with the red pill, blue pill. Did you want Biden? Did you want Biden or did you want Trump? I'm like, come on. And so they're going to be like, so I'm going to put all my money in Trump. It's like, you can't make up this stuff. These things are becoming useful, actually. I'm going to start using these things.
Well, I have come to the conclusion that voting doesn't matter anymore. And actually, I don't plan on voting anymore because I think it's an absolute fool's errand. Maybe if it's like your HOA, or maybe you're in a small town, maybe some small town mayor, okay. But governor, at least here in the States, governor, president, no, it's all controlled. It's all controlled. And what blows my mind, Michael, is to encounter people further down the fairway than myself in age, etc., and they still buy into this shit. It just blows my mind. Just like the Trump 5D chess stuff. Like I'm just like, I just don't get it.
Yeah, when I was young, I thought, as people get older, they will tend to get wiser, and some people do, clearly. Especially those who study all their lives, and you're always trying to learn. But there are some people that are basically don't have much more education than they had when they were like 12. They got more experiences, but they don't actually evolve. Some people evolve, and over time, they're not even the same person that they were 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 40 years ago, because they actually are evolving with this new knowledge and these new experiences. They're actually like a different person. I mean, they still have those memories and experiences of themselves as a younger man or woman, but they evolve, and they may actually at some point be what you would call a wise person. The people that can kind of see subtle things and that are of use and can convey those. Because if you can't teach, you're useless. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you got to be a good teacher. It's very important to be a good teacher. It's extremely important to be a good teacher. And to be a good teacher, you have to be a really serious student, which means studying all the time. And when you make mistakes, just correct. Don't beat yourself up for it. Because if you don't make mistakes, you ain't trying. You know what I mean? The best climbers, I used to rock climb a lot. The best rock climbers are basically the ones that fall all the time. And what are the basketball, you've always heard the basketball thing. The big basketball champions are the ones that missed all the time until they didn't miss all the time, right? They just kept playing and playing and playing, and oh, missed again. Before you know it, like, hey, I'm getting better at this thing. Before you know it, like, hey, you know how to do this better than anybody else. And so that's what we want to shoot for, so that we can be useful to the rest of because we want other people to be great teachers too. Like I want everybody around me to be able to teach me what they know that I don't know. And I need to be able to teach them what I know that they don't know, because we have to operate as a team. Because there's no way that one person can absorb all this stuff. You know what I mean? Or experience it either. So that's vital, is to study hard and be a good teacher and constantly teach. Because one of the ways that I found some of the pillars of learning are, one is just doing stuff, like doing sports or going fishing or whatever, you know what I mean? Just stuff, I joined the military and I learned all kinds of things by doing stuff, and I've read a lot of books. So studying, especially I love old books, studying and reading books and going places. Physically going is important, actually. And then eventually you start teaching, right? And learn how to actually read a book, because there's one thing to just read pages, but there's another thing to read books. Like Catherine Austin Fitz gave me a stack of stuff to read, and she's like, you can speed read. And I'm like, actually, no, I can't. I never speed read. I can't speed read. I've never learned how to do it because I don't read. Actually, I study. And reading is just what I need to be able to study. You know what I mean? I've never learned how to read fast, because since I was a child, I always was reading things like physics and philosophy and that sort of stuff. And when you're reading that, it's not this isn't potato chips that you're eating. I'm reading stuff that I may have to read a paragraph 5 times to understand what that scientist was saying. And I'm taking notes and I'm like looking other stuff. And it might take me a whole day to read 1 page. I mean, literally, because I'm trying to, what is he saying? Okay, I got to look this up. And that's why I have this library, man. You should see my library. This is a tiny part of it. And it's took years to assemble this thing so that I can go and go, oh, wait, here, let me see. There's what the Cherokee were doing over there, and so the, so it's a methodical process. But at the end of the day, then once you feel comfortable with what you know, now you're going to put it to the test when you start teaching people. And then they're going to show you what you don't know. So, and remember when you were a kid, the teachers were always like, when you really start to, when you're really going to start to know the subject when you start to teach it, because everybody's going to find the holes in your knowledge for you. Because, and so over time, then they find the holes and you study and you fill in those blanks and you become, then you can become a good teacher. And so that's very important. So everybody needs to be a good teacher, whether you're teaching how to, use leather or canning food or whatever, you know what I mean? Just whatever it is, because there's all these different skills that we all need to share with each other and combine those. And that's vital in the days ahead, right? It's vital. The ability to teach patiently, because keep in mind, if you get frustrated every time, you're like, how does this guy not see this? Well, I can only imagine how many times people thought, how can that fool not see that Israel is not his friend? For years, I was like, hey, they're our greatest ally. And at some point, I'm like, what? I was brainwashed. You know what I mean? But it's like, and the only cult you'll never see is the cult you're in. I learned that, right? And once you know that fundamental thing, once you realize that you really have to step back from yourself, it's really good to go for long walks, right? And just no earphones. You can't wear this crap. You can't listen to music, no alcohol, none of that crap, right? No music. You just walk and be quiet with the birds, not in the city, because you can't walk like that. You got to dodge cars and stuff and watch out. That guy's got a knife or something, It's better to walk out in the forest or sit by a stream or something and just think, because everybody watching this is actually smarter than they think they are, because you've got all this knowledge in your head. It's like a bunch of boxes that you've stored in your head, and now you got to assemble these things, right? Because you know a lot of stuff that you haven't assembled yet. So you have to just go for long walks or be quiet, get good sleep, get in the sunshine and think about these things. And then sometimes you're just like, how come I never saw that before? I always had all that knowledge in my head and I never put these things together. That's why I love just going for walks, because then you start putting things together. And again, go for these walks, teaching walks, basically learning. It's study. You don't read. You don't take a book with you. You don't take this stuff, of course. And then when you start to teach, then you're going to really reach the next level, because people are going to find the holes. You fill them in, and then then you become quite useful to the community.
Well, speaking of books and you're speaking of literature and things of that nature. I can't help but think about how much is subscription based, right? Wherein they can easily turn stuff off. Like, look, I'll tell you, doing this show, I use an editing software, and the one I was using for some reason could not verify that I had a pro subscription. Well, what did that mean? Despite my internet being perfect, that meant that I could not edit the videos that I put out. I try and put out in a timely manner, and it just dawned on me how important it is to just have as much custody or control of something as you can, because it's amazing how everything is the music, the shows. I mean, people's good service, everything is subscription based, or it's in the cloud. And this, just like these events that appear to be metastasizing, it could very well be an excuse to do some type of reset, right? One currency, one gender, one this, one that, all under one roof.
Right. And we are under one book that people might want to read, actually study, is Rape of the Mind by Joost Meerlo. And you'll see you're constantly under these attacks. But once you realize how a lot of the brainwashing works, it becomes harder to brainwash you. Doesn't mean you're invincible, but you're going to become more and more resilient against it, right? So to know the techniques that are being used against you, but again, it's like martial art. Just because you know doesn't mean they can't still get you in the headlock. But once you know, you can start to go, oh no, 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 I know how this goes. I know what he's doing, and then you can start to avoid it. It's like so studying. I would everybody should read the book Rape of the Mind. Rape of the Mind. It's a 1956 book by Joost Meerloo, right? He's a Dutch psychologist, and he really goes into detail about things like intoxicants and all kinds of different things and how they're used to disarm people. You know, that's basically the way we killed the Indians, was mostly just firewater, and that was it. I mean, of course, we killed their buffalo and those sorts of things, and did all kinds of other stuff, but it was mostly firewater. You know, and that's what today you see the drugs, Trump trying to push drug cannabis out, right? And that's Soros' policy, is open borders and cannabis, because they know cannabis takes you out of your executive function, right? Your executive function's gone. Now they can. That's why Joe Rogan. You know, people watch Joe Rogan and go, "Ah, Joe Rogan's great. Joe Rogan's that." Joe Rogan is smoking dope in front of you and in front of millions of children. That ain't an accident that he and Elon Musk were doing this. That's not an accident. That was an attack. That was a direct attack right on your executive function. That was a brainwashing, full force tank battle, right? And you have to go. That's why all these opportunities that people are like, I can introduce you to Joe Rogan and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm not. I was on Alex Jones' show one time. He's like, I've known Joe Rogan for 26 years. He's a good friend, and I had dinner with him all the time or whatever. And he's like, you know, you can put a. They were trying to get me in that ecosystem, right? And I said right there, live, I'm like, I'm not going on Joe Rogan's show. He's a dope head. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna. He's smoking dope in front of millions of kids. You got to have a line. You've got to have some line that there's a lot of things you can negotiate on, find some gray area, but there's some things like, not that one. You know what I mean? You have to have some line that's it, man. That's over the line right there. You know, like Epstein Island and bringing out those little girls out there and all that stuff. That's over the line. Nobody should be forgiven for that. Trump should not be forgiven for the death jab. That's it. That's over the line. But the thing is the MAGA people that are like, well, you know, Fauci fooled him. Here's the bottom line. The people that can fool, like Trump, who's a professional con man, he looks at people like that in full contempt. You're not even worthy of his time. If you would fall for that, he hates you. You're like getting in the way, but send him the money though, right? That's the way those guys are. He's a narcissistic. He's pathological, right? I mean, he's total narcissist. He's totally doesn't care about anything but himself, right? That's it. And he, not just him, Netanyahu's similar. There's many of these people like this, right? They select for people like that because they're easy to control. They're easy. They have certain mechanisms, right? Money, coercion, and ego. They don't have any ideology, right? You know, the four cheeses are money, ideology, coercion, and ego. Mice, right? Mice. We talked about that before. And so somebody like Trump is money and ego. And I'm sure they have a library of coercion as well. But in reality, he can be controlled through money and ego, right? And if he gets out of line, throw some of those videos out there and watch him go to prison or whatever, right? If that would even happen. I mean, his people would probably protect him, you know? I mean, some of them would anyway. I wonder what percentage of people still support Trump. I wonder what percentage that is.
I wonder to myself. I mean, it's certainly waning. You know, I've noticed. There's actually a guy that I have on Facebook. He was very vocal. Trump, you know, very very pro Republican, and he posted something. And usually I try and keep a low profile on Facebook. I'm just watching and observing. But he posted something that really told me there's a shift going on. Michael, he said, I'm blanking out here, but he basically said something along the lines of that he doesn't intend on voting anymore, more or less, or something like that. That he's become disillusioned between the parties. And I thought, yep, something's going on. And I'll tell you something else though. The younger generation, I'm a millennial, but even the Gen Z are very in tune with what's going on because they have not matriculated so much watching major television, Fox, MSNBC, CNN, whatever. They're on X. They're on social media. They're on this or that. And they have a totally different zeitgeist perspective as it relates to the power structure.
Yeah, and that's obviously incredibly dangerous for the Zionists and Israel as well, because they don't buy into the magical elf thing, right? The new guys are like,
I love that term. I love
yeah.
that term.
Yeah, actually, that came from a friend of mine who happens to be Orthodox Jew. He's like, the Christian Zionists, they're the huge problem because they're the ones that worship the magical elves, and the worst thing you can do is you just worship them like that. That does severe damage to those people, right? And because he's Orthodox, he's a hardcore Orthodox Jew. We communicate every day, and for years, we've been fighting China together for years, but we could tell you some stories on China, but when it comes to, after he pointed out some of these things, I started paying attention over time, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. It's actually the over the top, no holds barred worship, but they worship them, but also want to just gather them up in Israel so they give them the chance to convert or die, right? You know what I mean? It's, so you've got these different people that are all ready to just go to war and drag us along with it. You got people that are like, we should go to war to, let's actually talk about the number of people that were killed in these protests, allegedly, over in Iran. How many people, what are they saying? 32,000 or something, right? 32,000. So, okay, objectively, how do we know that? Who told us that? MSM? Trump? Netanyahu? All right. Do we trust those guys? Obviously not, right? So in other words, we don't have any objective source of information about the numbers. We just don't, right? But yet, and suddenly that becomes the argument. Well, they killed tens of thousands of protesters. How do you know they even killed one? Right? You know what I mean? We don't know. There's still people that think October 7th was actually organic Hamas. You know what I mean? You can't make up the stuff. They actually still believe that, right? And they'll just write off the USS Liberty and all this other stuff. But Trump also used to say that 38,000 Americans died building the Panama Canal. But it's complete nonsense. It's like roughly 350. I've got the original reports to Congress right here. You know what I mean? I got them right here. I mean, I got a huge amount on the Panama Canal. Actually, you know what these are? These are the executive orders for the Panama Canal. This is all. I got all that stuff, man. I got a whole library on Panama Canal from the original records. So I just looked it up. I'm like, so Trump says 38. I think first he said 35 and he changed it to 38. He kept saying it just over and over and over, right? And it was a complete lie. It was like 300 and something. Why did he have to lie? Panama Canal is important to us, but he just perpetually lies. Look at this. This is the executive orders relating to the Isthmian Canal Commission, March 4th, 1904 to June 12th, 1911. These are the actual, I got a whole library on this stuff. So, when he says stuff, I'm not looking it up online. I'm not looking on Wikipedia. If somebody sends me another Wikipedia link, I tell you what, I wish I had a B-52 loaded with anti-Wikipedia SpongeBobs or something. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to actually bomb them, but I would like drop water balloons on them or something, right? But I mean, it's like, I look it up in the original stuff. That's why I got this giant library that took me years to make. It's mostly really old books. Right? They tell me something, here's the definitions of such and such. And I'm like, well, let me look it up. Actually, they rewrote the definition, didn't they? Because here's all my old dictionary section, right? You know what I mean? If you're going to read old books, you need old dictionaries, but.
Oh, no, I was just going to add in, you mentioned about, Wikipedia, and I'm just finding more and more as I go down this rabbit hole, Michael, in that so much of everything, the fabric of our society, people's perception of power in your vote, to the medical industry, to the education industry. I mean, energy. I mean, so much has been obfuscated intentionally, and people are basically slaves. And you made another point. I don't want to deviate too much from your train of thought, but you mentioned how they view us, how the cabal views us, and they certainly view us as chattel. They don't look at. It's like over in England, the blue bloods, and I think it's the red bloods or warm bloods. I'm probably botching it, right? You don't mix the classes. There's certain castes. And again, from my mental model, that is how they see it. The cabal, the transnationalists.
Right. I mean, they see themselves as above and beyond everything. I mean, they're the ultimate, racist, super racist. And that's why they always go to racist, because they're projecting, right? Professional victims, too. Professional victims are always predators, whether that's on a that's individual level or a family level or a cultural or religious level. You got to be careful for professional victims. They're going to stab you, right? they're going to get you. And they are, constantly, as soon as you say something that, hey, Israel shouldn't have done that. Oh, you're an anti-Semite. And I'm like, okay, there you go. That guy, you got to keep an eye on him, because that's a predator right there, right? And they're using that. I'm a victim. Those people that are doing the victim thing, there is nothing they won't do. That's the type of people that'll do a genocide, Gaza. That's the type of people that'll do a genocide. Absolutely. 100%. There is no lie too big. And so you got to be careful when they just automatically throw out a lie. I mean, they immediately throw a lie. I didn't like what you said, anti-Semite. Boom, that was a lie. That was a lie, and it was an accusation. It was a defamation. It was a blood libel. I love to say it's a blood libel. They're like, no, a blood libel is against us. I'm like, actually, it was against me. That was a blood libel, right? You're doing a blood libel. It has you can have a dire consequence to just call somebody an anti-Semite, right? And you know that. You're a predator, right? And you just come right back at them. Don't give them any room to breathe, man. Look on the top of my X. This guy the other day, like 2 weeks ago, he threatened, he's a Zionist pig, basically. He said that he's going to be bathing on the beach at Trump Hotel at Gaza. That's what he said. I published it, right? It's on the top. He told me, because I disagreed with him on these things, he told me he was going to tell his friend at the Department of Homeland Security, and they're going to look into me. I mean, that guy said that. His name is Rosenberg. He's on the top of my X right now. I published his message. He literally said he's going to tell his friend at the Department of Homeland Security and investigate me, right? I mean, that's straight up has a disagreement and saying he's going to call the secret police on you is what he's actually saying, right? That's a big deal. That's a big deal. That's not a minor thing. It's probably a felony. I don't know if it's a felony, but if he actually did it and they actually opened an investigation and we find out about it, it's going to be interesting. It's the kind of stuff that movies are made out of, right? You know what I mean? Or at least little documentaries, right? And so, I mean, with Freedom of Information Act and all these sorts of things, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's the kind of savages that we're talking about, right? He's actually making fun of doing genocide, saying he's going to be getting a suntan on the beach in Gaza at the Trump Hotel, right? I mean, these are the people that, and he immediately said, when I disagreed, he said, I might as well be doing a Heil Hitler. He actually said that, because they always go to Hitler, because that's what they are. Keep in mind, Zionist, which he's openly Zionist. He says he's very proud of it. He repeated it multiple times. The Zionists were working that close with Hitler. They worked very close with Hitler. The first man that Zionists seem to have assassinated was a Dutch Jew in the 1800s. What was his name? They assassinated him. He was a Dutch Jew. Jews and Zionists have been killing each other since day one, right? And the Zionist and the Hitler worked very close. I mean, they were, because the Zionists wanted to kill a bunch of Jews in Europe and cause pogroms to happen, so to cause the Jews to move down to Israel. That's what they wanted to do. They didn't even hide it. They didn't even hide it. It was right out there in front of God and everybody. That's the kind of savages they are. That's why Jews hate them so much. Many Jews. Other Jews are actually Zionist leaders. So it's mixed, like all things in life are. But at the end of the day, this guy actually threatened to call the secret police on me, the Department of Homeland Security.
Well, I'd also thought I'd mention that I've had a gentleman named Makia Freeman whose book was actually banned on not only on Amazon but on a lot of other platforms. His book is called The Cult of the Chosen Ones, and he talks about that there. He talks about the Zionism. He talks about the creation of it. There's even speculation that Hitler was a Rothschild bastard. There's one side. I am familiar with the Zionists working with Hitler and trying to kill other Jews to stir the pot. And then also the Jacob Frank Sabbatean element that weaves through, that is very fascinating. And there's certainly it converges is what I'm getting at. That's a fascinating history and a very fascinating rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah, we're talking hardcore savages that will just wipe out the children in Gaza and laugh. I mean, I've got it in his messages, right? I mean, he was threatening me in writing. They're not always that smart, actually. Actually, when the wolf pack gets all yappity yappity and they all come to bite you, they make a lot of mistakes in their words. And people should not hesitate to publish all that stuff when they do these things, right? Don't give them a break. The reason that they fill up the space and become so powerful is a lot because civilized people don't want to confront them all the time. So they take advantage of that, right? I'm a professional victim. No, I always throw the Hitler thing, the Holocaust thing, right? And it's like you always expect, okay, here comes 3 more minutes. He's going to say his uncle was killed in the Holocaust. You know what I'm saying? As if nobody else suffered in World War II. As if, you know what I mean? As if nobody else has ever had family in a war. They're going to hit you with, well, my uncle was in the Holocaust and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, whatever. I had all these uncles and other friends in wars, and it's like, we all have had that. It doesn't make you special. It doesn't make you special. And you're genociding in a Holocaust Gaza, right? And now destroying Iran that didn't do crap, right? They didn't do anything to Israel. What did Iran actually objectively really do to Israel? Israel has been trying to pick a war with Iran for 30 years minimum. It's unbelievable how many meetings I've been into about this crap when I was a war correspondent, right? It was unbelievable. All they wanted to do is fight Iran. Iran's the ultimate terrorist and all this stuff. And finally, at some point, I'm like, I'm not seeing that. What I am seeing is these Israelis do a lot of terrorism. And it's obvious. Like, they don't hesitate. They jump up and down and scream and holler and clap their hands. Not all of them, obviously. A lot of the Israelis are against this. But a lot of them, they're like totally down for genociding Gaza. A lot of Americans are too. Shame on you. I mean, if you're all up for genociding Gaza, ain't nobody going to cry for you because you took the death jab. Because they're death jabbing, they're killing you too. The same people that are genociding Gaza are the same people who invented and deployed that death jab and have killed people all over the place, right? Including probably most of the people watching this probably know somebody. There's probably would be more people watching this, except they're dead, right? And, the people that would still be cheering about what's happening in Gaza or Iran, and you took the death jab, guess what? You are Gaza. You are Iran. You are the Holocaust victim. You are the one that they want in the oven, right? That's it. That's what they're doing. It's obvious. People have to stand up, stand your ground. Their power, man behind the curtain power doesn't work when enough people just stand up and say, that's it. I'm not going along. That's it. I'm not going along. You can scream and holler all you want. I'm not going along.
I'm glad you brought that up because I had a guest on my show. Her name is Max Lowen, and she's a survivor of satanic ritual abuse and MK Ultra at the Vatican. And she mentioned about how these people would not be able to, the celebrities, the financiers, known and unknown bloodline families, et cetera. These people, the only reason why they're able to operate is because your average Joe allows them to operate. And she mentioned about how Maria Abramovich, of course, the witch, is said, I guess, vocalized on a podcast that she is alarmed that she has to have security around all the time because
literally a witch, right?
Oh, the shit I've seen. Oh, you know what? You got to check out this podcast if you haven't. I've followed her for some time. The Imagination Podcast. She literally focuses.
Let me write this down.
It's called the Imagination Podcast. She exclusively focuses on satanic ritual abuse, MK Ultra, and the groups that I mentioned earlier. I'm really into this shit. It's the same groups I keep hearing about over and over again. Jesuits and Sabbatean Frankist element there. That is a recurring theme. About, immense power, immense power, and families that people have never even heard of that are running the show, and not just the Rothschilds, because I hear it a million times. No doubt they're a player in there for sure, but
and the Rockefellers.
It's a very deep and very dark rabbit hole, like so dark. I've actually been told, hey, don't go. So I just kind of brushed the surface, but
Yeah, the more and more people that stand up against them, it's becoming more and more difficult, because that's what they're concerned about. Because the critical mass, they're losing the initiative. They're going more on defense. That's why they're panicking now with Iran. They realize, like Trump, the gig's up, on Trump and those sorts of trash. And when people around him just stop going along, and not just him, because remember, Trump is just a condom. He'll come and go. But it's the architecture that people need to resist, right? And that can be actively resistant or passively, right? And so when you realize people are doing these things, don't help them. Don't go along with it. Don't go along to get along. In some things it's good to go along to get along in some things, but on other things, like, hey, pushing dope to children, like Joe Rogan, who do you think he's working for? You know what I mean? The people that are trying to destroy America and enslave them. Who is that? There's multiple groups that would like to do it, right? There's the Zionists would love to do it. Those are the ones that are. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, well, kudos to you for not selling your soul, so to speak, because think about how many people, Michael, would love to get on the opportunity to go on Joe Rogan, or all these other people who try and get into Hollywood, and they, quite literally sell their soul, like straight up.
They do straight up. They're not, this is the thing. They're so used to people selling out. They don't even know what it looks like sometimes when you don't. It's confusing. You know how many people are like, don't you understand? You can get such a big readership. I'm like, do you think I can't do math? You know what I mean? You think I can't do it? You know what I'm saying? It's like, I actually get it. You know what I mean? And I've made a conscious decision. I'm not going to sell my soul to the devil, because that's what you're doing. You're selling your soul to the devil so you can get on the Joe Rogan show. There I was on the Joe Rogan show. It smelled like dope in there. You know what I mean? It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go on the dopehead Joe Rogan show. He's smoking dope in front of millions of young people. And Elon Musk too. How smart is Elon Musk? Elon Musk, is he supposed to be the smartest, richest guy in the world, but he couldn't figure out how not to take the jab. Something ain't right. Catherine Austin Fitts told me when Misako and I, like I said, we stayed over a month with her. Catherine Austin Fitts said something like about Elon Musk. She said, he's not a birth, he's an op. Or no, she said, he's an op, not a birth. I was like, well, that's brilliant. I'm going to use that, which I just did again. And so, he's an operation, not an actual. In other words, he's not that guy. You look at him, you're like on the death jab, he's like, the science is unequivocal. That's what he put on Twitter, right? I think it was Twitter back then. He's like, he was recommending people take the death jab, right? And then he goes to his gigafactory in Germany, and he said he had to take it. I think he said he took 2, right? He said he had to take it or he couldn't go visit his gigafactory. And I'm like, McFly, again, think about it. So you're the richest guy in the world. You're getting ready to put people on Mars, right? Supposedly. And you can't figure out how to get your multi-billion-dollar gigafactory when you got your own little jets and stuff. You could probably just go buy an F-16 off the lot and fly on over there if you know how to fly it. So, but the point is Misako and I did. We were all over Europe. We were all over Germany. We didn't take the jabs. But Rocket Boy, the smartest guy, the richest guy in the world, when we're flying commercial, renting cars, going all over Europe, we never took the jab. But Rocket Boy couldn't figure out how to get. Listen, here's how you would handle that. Let's imagine you're Elon Musk. You got a multi-billion-dollar gigafactory there in Germany, and you want to go visit your factory, and Germany says, thou must take the jab to come to your gigafactory. I'd be like, you got to be kidding. This is going to be fun. I'm going to be there on Monday morning at about 8 o'clock. If the winds are favorable, or otherwise it could be a little bit before or after, I'm going to be there. And I'm going to walk down the steps of my little airplane. And if you detain me, that factory will be closed. It'll be like that, right? It'll be closed. And if I get back on that airplane and go back to Texas and I don't get to see my factory, that factory will be closed until I decide to open it. It'll be like that, right? You want to play, all those workers can go home and you can deal with them, right? That's the way you would do this. But that's not what he did, because he's one of them. He pushed the jab. Did he even take it? I don't know. But if he did take it, he's incredibly stupid. If he took it, he must know by now that he's not in the club. Look at Scott Adams. As arrogant as he was, Scott Adams pushing the jab, always pushing the jab. Now, people are saying Scott Adams never pushed the jab. You don't know what you're talking about. Okay, shh. Look up. He did push the jab hard, right? Scott Adams was pushing it. He was insulting people who didn't take it, right? He was coercing them to take it. Then he took it, and then he died. He's dead, right? And he was then begging for Trump, because Scott Adams is driven by ego. He blocked me, actually. You can see he's driven by ego and money. He blocked me on Twitter, because I was like, yeah, you're forcing people to take the jab. You know what I mean? You smoke dope. He's a dope smoker, right? He's dead now. He died months ago, I guess, maybe a couple months. But, am I supposed to feel sorry for him? This is combat, dude. You told people to walk through the minefield. You told young people to walk through the minefield and take the jab and smoke dope. You think I'm going to cry? Go get it from God, right? No, this is war. This is actual war. You're actually encouraging young people to smoke dope and take the jab, and then you get sick and die. And people are like, hey, you're pretty cold-hearted. You ain't seen nothing yet. This is actual war, right? He's encouraging my family and friends and my country and people around the world to take the death jab from his position of, hey, I'm in contact with everybody. You know what I mean? He's Mr. Blue checkmark guy, right? He's a big ego guy. He had his pretty wife that, left him and all that. The moment I saw those two together, I'm like, she's leaving him. That fool doesn't have any idea what he did. You know what I mean? I was in the Army. I know what happens when a dweeb like him gets a girl like that. It never turns out well, right? And it didn't. She left him, of course. And at the end of the day, does he not see through that, right? He didn't see through it. He didn't see through the jab. He would lose his mind. And when he's on dope, he would, get high and threaten to throw his printer out the window or something, right? And one time he's like threatening to throw his printer out the window, as I recall, because I watched some of his stuff because people kept sending me links. Scott Adams, and the same with that guy, he wrote the end of the world is just beginning or something. Peter Zayin. I read that book. I read it when I was in Mexico watching people invade across the Rio Grande. Actually, I was on the Mexican side. And, I read that book because so many people kept asking me. He's another jab pusher, right? And, the guy's wheezing and coughing, still pushing the jab, Peter Zayin. There's a video of it. I saved the video. It's unbelievable. But, I mean, these guys are driven by ego and money, clearly, right? So they're easy to manipulate. And at the same time, now when Scott Adams was dying, he was still reaching out to Elon Musk. He was reaching out to Trump. Hey, they're going to let him take some experimental thing or whatever. You know what I mean? That's just like, you just all the way to the grave still, you know what I mean? You got to be careful from these people because they will drive you to the grave with them.
Well, I think the big mistake right there is if I had cancer, I would certainly not go into the hospital and do chemo and go into that medical industrial complex that exists, because that'll kill you. That's for sure. And what I'm realizing, Michael, is all these people, all these figureheads, if you want to make it really, really big in this world, when I first started doing the show, I would see people where they would literally have just wrinkled ass t-shirt. They, you look at them, they just got out of bed and they have this huge following, huge reach. And I thought, my God, this SOB is doing it. My gosh, I could do it too. He could fog a mirror. You got a pulse. And then I realized, okay, well, wait a minute here. If I talk about the stuff I talk about, I'm going against the Leviathan. Good luck. And then I've realized that so many of these people that people follow in alternative media, because everyone shifted from, mainstream, or at least the younger generations. Now they're looking at alternative media. Well, there's a reason why I've realized a lot of these people have 1 million subscribers, 5 million, 10 million, and then all these Hollywood celebrities. And I think the biggest freaking lie people tell their kids and tell people is, little Johnny, if you work really hard in your garage, you can do what Bill Gates did, or you can do what some of these, there's never any mentioning of Incutel. There's never any mentioning of CIA or alphabet agencies being involved in helping to create these, or Amazon didn't make any money for 7 years or whatever. Like this total lie. And this person's the richest man in the world. I think, I don't know who it was. It was Chris Rock was saying something to Jeff Bezos that, you're such and such, you're the richest man in the world. And I'm thinking in my head, like, Jeff Bezos is definitely not the richest man in the world. The richest people in the world, people don't even know about, or they're very old families, and everything is just an inversion. It's fake. It's all
Exactly. Like
okay.
Elon Musk is clearly an actor. Trump is clearly an actor. Trump is clearly nothing but an actor. He's a clown. Trump is, I would say, above average intelligence, but not much actually. I mean, he's got above average experience. He's got tremendous experience because he's been in these circles with these people. But he's not. He's no sort of genius. He's just a con man. That's all he is. And Elon Musk, he's just not that guy. He's not super ultra brilliant. He's not. So a guy that can't figure out how to get to Germany without taking the jab wants us to put chips in our head that he makes, and he's high, and and he brags about his ketamine issues. You know, ketamine. You know, and you look up ketamine, you're like, wow. And Elon Musk talks about his ketamine thing publicly. I mean, he's like, at one point he said something like, my stockholders or my investors should hope that I stay on my ketamine prescription. You can find it online, what he said, actually, what Elon Musk said. I mean, it's just total. They're just like, hey, everybody should do drugs. You know what I mean? I had a military officer, or former military officer, message me yesterday. I'm going to have to respond to him, but he was talking about let me tell you what this drug is. Let me ask you if you've ever heard of it before, actually. I had to, yeah. And he's, he's telling me how great this drug is. Let me see. What's it called? And so I looked up this drug. First of all, if it's called drug, guess what my chances are of taking it? 0.
Yep.
Right?
Oh man.
Yeah, here it is. So the name of it is called ibogaine. And he's saying, I recently had an experience with ibogaine. My God, I had no idea anything could be so spectacular. I'm working on telling my story of the experience itself and what it led up to. And how familiar are you with this stuff? I never heard of it. I had to look it up.
I am actually. I actually have a friend of mine who's a former Top Gun fighter pilot. He took ibogaine, and if you want to connect with him, by the way, let me know. I'll connect you to him. He's actually a really good guy. He'd be a good contact. He took it. He said it changed his life. He said he told me he went from very straight laced, very tight, just stringent, to taking that, and it just completely. Now he's very mellow. Now he leads surfing retreats for veterans. Just a great human being, and he took ibogaine.
Chances of me taking something like that is 0. 0. I looked it up. It's something about hallucinogenic psychotropic or something. It's like, no way, man. No way. The toughest drug I'm taking is coffee, right? No chance. No chance on earth. Don't need that crap.
I wish coffee still worked for me. I still have to get out of the a tolerance that I built up. I haven't had coffee in months because it stopped working. I was having 4 cups a day at one point.
Man, but I mean that's it. I mean, there's no chance. I mean, why do I need that crap? You just got sunshine. Go for walks. You know what I mean? It's like, go sleep. The best thing you can do is get good sleep. Get good sleep. Walk. Get exercise. Don't listen to crap music. If you're gonna listen to music, it needs to be like, old music. All this modern stuff seems to be poisoned, actually.
Well, it's amazing. I was listening to how the record producers put things into the music that's supposed to be, obviously very detrimental. And I can't help but think about frequencies, right? What do they say? Everything is, we're all, frequency, vibration, etc. And so, yeah, the music, the hertz.
Yeah, 442 versus what was the other? Yeah, and Masako and I, we go to museums all over the world, and we've been in so many museums in so many countries. And there's some we've started to notice some of the museums, they have some kind of acoustic thing going on. And we saw it in the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam recently. We saw it in a museum in Oslo, and we saw it in a museum in Copenhagen. And it's got some frequency going on, and we couldn't record it actually on our phone. I'm going to find one of the, actually I could just hire one in Amsterdam and ask him to go into this one part of the museum at the Rijksmuseum and record that and just send me the waveforms and all that. Because I couldn't, there's something about it. It's really, it's deep. whatever it is, and it makes you feel uneasy, right? And then we found the same thing, like I said, in the museum in no, in Stockholm, one in Stockholm, and then another one in Oslo, right? So it was, and then another one actually in Copenhagen, right? So I mean, these different museums are clearly using similar sounds. It's something's wrong with it. You can feel it. You can actually feel it in your body, but they're showing you visuals. I was in this. It's be about 2 weeks ago. I was at the National Library over there in Copenhagen, right? In Denmark, which is, Danish Strait stuff. And there's this right across the street from that, like, is a cafe. They must have 100,000 books in that cafe, at least many, many tens of thousands of books. It's massive, right? It's absolutely massive. And downstairs, so for those who are in Copenhagen, you know where I'm at. This coffee shop that's got just floors of books, it's like, and they're all for sale. Many of them are quite old and incredible. But I went downstairs where the cash register is, and I found that there was even a lot more books down here. And I found all this art, quote unquote, and it's dismembered babies and stuff. And I'm like, you think I'm going to buy a book from this place? I mean, if I see something here I want, I'm going to take a photo of it and find it somewhere else. I mean, it's all this dismembered babies and dismembered women and crap. You know what I mean? So I photographed it. And a few days ago, about 5 or 6 days ago, I sent photos to some of my friends. And I said, what is this crap? I found it. And this is where I found it. Right. And one of them said, oh, that looks like from the Beatles Butcher album, the Butcher album. So I looked up the Butcher album, the Beatles Butcher album, and you can see it. The Beatles have got they're wearing white suits. They got all these dead babies, not live, I guess, but they're like body parts, dismembered babies on their shoulders and stuff. Look up Beatles Butcher album and you'll see what I mean. It was disgusting. And so, I mean, this was back in the 60s, right? Look at this. Look up Butcher album Beatles. And so you see this crap all over the place. There's no art involved in that. It's meant to do something bad. It's certainly nothing.
Well, you know what? Just seeing this tells me that, just like Bob Dylan in the 60 Minutes interview, this is, in my opinion, this is how these people hit it really big. I don't think it's talent in this world.
What did Bob Dylan say?
I'm sorry?
What did Bob Dylan say?
There was a thing he did, I don't know, 15 years ago. It was on 60 Minutes, where it was some guy who is now deceased. He actually died not terribly long after the interview. He was interviewing Bob Dylan, and he asked him, so, what's the secret to your success? And Bob Dylan told him basically, it's, I made a deal, and I'm paraphrasing here. And then the interviewer is like, well, can you tell me, like, well, who'd you make a deal with? And he's like, the man here, the big man here on earth, or something to that effect. Like, clearly anybody who had an IQ above room temperature could decipher, okay, obviously this is like some satanic shit. So, I mean, I sincerely believe that with a lot of these people, a lot of these celebrities, a lot of these big people, I'll preface, I was raised in a pretty straight-laced family, so we don't believe in shit that's like out there. I mean, my parents still subscribe to kind of traditional political narratives, left-right paradigms. I'm over that shit. I just,
it takes a while to break out of it.
Well, what was for me, Michael, is, and pardon some of the audience tuning in who've heard this ad nauseum, I first had a gentleman on, Alex Newman. Maybe you're familiar with him, and he like one of my early episodes, he mentioned satanic, and when I first heard that, I was like, and I was more secular then. I was like, that sounds kind of out there. Like, it's going to look like I'm like really religious. But then guess what?
I remember going through that phase. Yeah. I'm through it now. I'm through it.
Yeah. And then I kept hearing it being brought up. Then I had Dave Collum, who and then he sat down with me for, I don't know, 3 hours, and he started, and I'm just like, okay, what the hell is going on here? Why do I keep hearing this shit? And then I started going down the rabbit hole. And then when you, and I'm speaking directly towards people in the audience who are not familiar with this, when you look into survivors of SRA, satanic ritual abuse, and you start going down the rabbit hole and you start connecting the dots, like, this is not a new phenomenon. This has been going on for centuries, like
at a minimum centuries,
a long, long time. And it's, you know what, as Mark Twain said, the truth is stranger than fiction. And I like to think I'm a rational thinker. I like to think, I think critically, and I could say with a high degree of confidence, you have people trafficking kids, and they are consuming them, and they are consuming their blood, and this is the currency in the world of geopolitics. That is the
Only a
ultimate
few years
currency.
ago, that sounded crazy. Only a few years ago. But now I think it's obvious that they're up to something serious like that. It's quite obvious. The question is, how big is it and who's exactly doing it? But it's clearly, like Epstein Island clearly is related to that stuff. And Trump is clearly in the middle of that stuff. It's obvious. It's obvious. There's no way that, and how can a Christian, by the way, support, who's anti-abortion, support Israel, who's like, they'll abort babies like they'll kill Gazans. You know what I mean? They'll abort them in mass. They'll airstrike them practically, right? This is, but somehow they magically reconcile things with magical mathematics. Yeah. But I can totally see where they would do this. That's what the Agoris would do. They're like corporate Agoris. They can do it on a corporate. The Agoris in India, they're more, live by the river stuff, live in a cave. Some of them are actually doctors and things like that. But they're not like, they don't have the ability to like make an Epstein Island. You know what I mean? They don't have the organizational abilities and resources and just knowledge to pull together a big structure like that. But these other people do, and there clearly are people that would drink children's blood. I mean, they just would. If they thought it would give them any power or immortality or special feelings, they would do it. I mean, they would take drugs. There's no question about it. I mean, and that would be a drug, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are videos out there of celebrities literally drinking it, and you can look up a guy, Isaac Cappy, very
Isaac
creepy,
Cappy.
very creepy story. He started he started talking about certain celebrities, big celebrities who people would know, being involved in this, and
How do
he
you
ended up
spell
committing
his last name?
suicide.
How do you
What's
spell
up?
his last name? How do you
I,
spell
I
his
think it's
last name?
K.
Cappy.
I think it's Kappy.
And he committed suicide?
Yes, he jumped off a bridge in 2019, and there was a documentary on him. And so if I was, I don't know, mayor or whatever, I'd build a bronze statue of this guy, because clearly he was bringing something to light, and and pardon my French, and they fucking killed him.
Mm. Yeah, they will, because they don't have any rules at all. It's not like, hey, they're gonna, you piss them off enough, they're just gonna whatever. Or if they think they can get power. Now the Agoris, the type of people that they will kill and eat and that sort of thing, or sacrifice, are the people that they think they can get a lot of Shakti from. Shakti, those who've studied Hinduism know what I'm talking about. It's like the universal feminine power. And as an idea on what is Shakti, just imagine that it's like money. You can earn it, you can lose it, you can steal it, it can be stolen from you, you can be born with it. Some people are born with more than others. Basically, Shakti, the only thing it can't do that money does, I think, is I think where that analogy breaks down is you don't get interest on Shakti. But if you loan it to somebody or something. But I mean, but the thing is you can steal it, it can be stolen, you can earn it. You know what I mean? And so that's why they will sacrifice children more, because they think children have more Shakti. They haven't used it, right? They'll sacrifice rich or powerful people, white people in particular, because they think they have more Shakti. That's how they get the wealth, right? And more than a lot of the Agoris that tend to be not all Indian, but like I met one from Sri Lanka. His name was Chun Chun Baba. He's dead now, but Chun Chun Baba, we talked about Shakti and those sorts of things. I would talk about it with Gary the Cannibal all the time. Yeah, they're like, yeah, it's the superpower. It's the super highway to enlightenment. It's the super highway to power, ultimate power. It was always about power, and he would stress that power, and he would go. And you see the way that these people are, they have no rules. And at the end of the day, they end up on Air Force One. So in one regard, in one level, they're right. They've used this evilness because just lack of rules. But at the end of the day, they're going to crumble. At the end of the day, they don't trust each other. At the end of the day, they'll kill each other, because they are like, if you're dancing with the devil, you are the devil, right? It's not like you dance with the devil and you're a good guy. You know what I mean? You're dancing with that devil. You're that guy, right? And if you take the money, If you take the money, if you continue to take the money, and that's what push the drugs on millions of young people and take the money, you're the devil. It's not like you're making a mistake. You know what I mean? You know what you're doing, and you're doing it anyway. You made a conscious decision. You're that guy.
Well, I'll just say I will never forget the time. This was probably 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, and it was a family friend. Uh, and his son died from fentanyl, and I just remember being invited to the house. It was the father there. He was going through it, and he had an estranged relationship with his kids and his ex. And anyhow, fast circling, going back to a previous point on him, he received a call from his ex wife, whom he never hears from, and she called him to the house. Long story short, there's police there. As he's walking up, he goes, sees his son in the bedroom there, and attempts to wake him up, and his son is obviously out, gone, and then to see him go through that, and then looking up caskets and other things on his laptop there, no parent should have to go through that. That was just very alarming, and then his son, who I knew growing up, was I think 22 at the time, and that just further added a huge wedge in the family, and so and that is just one of millions of people, and yeah, there are a lot of people. There are a lot of people on drugs. A lot of people need help. A lot of young men too, if I might add, who have checked out completely. And I'm not just talking about in the dating pool. A lot of people are very disenfranchised. Um, I'm one of them in some respects. I know we're going off tangentially here from geopolitics, but I think this gives you this is a reminder and a glimpse as to the makeup of Western society. How people have. I mean, look, I'm in my early 30s. Yeah, if this was 1950, I'd be married. Okay, I have a house, but I'd probably have a house and like 3 kids and this or that. And to have someone who's in his early 30s in this year, in this day and age, and to see, thankfully I have people in my cohort who are doing well, but I also have friends that know people who are not so doing so well. And to see that, the erosion of your purchasing power of the dollar, hearing about people having to work multiple jobs, people's daughters having to going on OnlyFans because they think that that's acceptable to showcase themselves. Just I mean, that is society in free fall mode, in my opinion.
It is. And the people who are doing this pornography and doing this music stuff, right? The people that are pushing the drugs, those are our enemies. I mean, bottom line, and they should be treated as such, right? They shouldn't be treated with, well, no, it's all everybody's freedom. It's not about freedom. It's about, and they always sell this as freedom. They always sell this as liberty. No, they're trying to make you a drug addict so they can destroy you and take your property, you know? And it's fun for them. It's a game. It's a game. Look, we got all these idiots stooped over living in under bridges, and we're taking all the property. They can have a bunch of drug addicts in downtown Portland, some fine property there, and then it just makes the property prices just then they can buy it up and get rid of the drug addicts. Misako and I went there, and they were handing out needles in a church parking lot. It was some organization that was allegedly part of the government, and we actually, they gave us needles and those little rubber things and ways to burn the whatever drugs, you know what I mean, to emulsify them or whatever you do with them. And but the point is it's intentional. These are direct attacks, and it's not about freedom. It's about destroying our way of life. And like you said, in 1950s, you would have a car or 2 cars, one for you and one for your wife. You'd have several kids running around, and you'd probably be in Mexico and Acapulco on vacation right now, jumping off that cliff or something. You know what I mean? But this is the path that we have allowed to happen, and we have to turn it around. The fact that you're cognizant of it, and I'm cognizant of it, and millions of us are cognizant of it, now is empowering us to stop it, right? Because now we know, but for generations, it was just like, hey, let's watch the band Kiss or whatever, you know what I mean? Or, this idiotic bands, and you know what I mean? And actually, I met one of their photographers recently, had lunch with him, and it just like a couple months ago. And it's just these bands and whatnot. It's all part of the comprehensive IMAX. You know, it's the Truman Show. We have to opt out of it. First of all, stop listening to music unless it's like really old, like Bach or something. Just don't listen to birds and stuff. You know, Misako, she likes to listen to old music from Okinawa because she's from Okinawa. Like really old. It's nice. It's very pleasant. It's very pleasant music. It's not anything that makes you want to go out and kill a cop or do drugs or something. You know what I mean? It's just like just old Japanese folk music. You know, the old music is fine. You know, they've done so much to alter our acoustic landscape because you know the look at the handwriting of the old people. Look at the hand. I got Benjamin Franklin's old books right here. So these three books right here. I don't want to pull them out now because I got that globe. It'll have a
Hmm.
problem if I. but you should see his handwriting. His handwriting is just like beautiful. A lot of these old people, their handwriting, even until recent times. I look at my handwriting. I'm like I'm like a monkey with the pen compared to those guys. Those guys are like a fine artist. Just the average person with their handwriting was incredibly beautiful. Just an average person. I got all these old letters that I have that I bought that deal with different stuff historically, and I look at their handwriting. I'm like, look at this. This is stuff that is artful. And you look at old tools. We were just over in Thailand talking with one of our Thai friends I've known for years, and we were talking about this, and we were talking about like old tools like hammers and stuff. And you know, even the old tools were artfully made. The old furniture was just so beautiful. You touch it and it feels quality. You know what I mean? And an old hammer or something. You know, it's just like pick up an old tool, get one of those old tools from the 1800s and pick up that thing, and then compare one today. You're like, this thing should be in a museum as a piece of art, and it's just a hammer. It's like, you know what I mean?
Well, just like even the architecture. I mean, you look at architecture from pre 1940 or what have you, and how ornate it looked, and there was character and life to it, and now it looks like something out of like you're in a prison. The buildings, it's just basic.
Right. That's why I love to have these books around me. This is like, I got maps and books around me, and except for this crap. I mean, I got to get rid of this crap. Get out of here. You know, it's like, you know what I mean? But we bought those to show them to people. But otherwise, you know what I mean? To show what they're doing. But, yeah, you need to put your hands should be touching wood. Your hands should be touching stone. Your hands should be touching, metal. It shouldn't be touching plastic. Look at this crap. You know what I mean? And everything's plastic, plastic, plastic. Should be touching real, like wool. I love wool. Wool is the king, man. So wool is the Mac Daddy king.
You are reminding me of all the microplastics. You are reminding me of all the intoxicants that we're exposed to, whether that is the geoengineering, all the graphene, aluminum, etc. I mean, the food, it's crazy. I was hearing about even the polyester, right? People, polyester, your socks, your underwear, your t-shirts or what have you, and just everything you're exposed to, the 5G or soon to be 6G, you're getting cooked in all these different frequencies. And then you have everyone was on freaking drugs, pharmaceutical drugs. I feel like when I go to the gym, every commercial is a freaking pharmaceutical drug commercial. And I can go off on a tangent here, but just it's crazy. And then people are born into this matrix. They don't even realize that they're in the matrix. They go and work for confetti money that is fake by these private central banks. They think their vote counts. They think history is what it is. I'm saying this as a history guy, and it's all just fake. Like so much of it is fake. And they think that the people who achieved tremendous levels of success got really lucky, and they don't realize that no, they literally sold their soul. Like they're literally doing heinous shit.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's a reality that no one talks about.
it is. It's hardcore. But it's not the end of the world because you know what? It's just not. We're aware of it, and we have agency. We have our own executive function, and we're coming together by just talking about this. So those who are in positions, which is all of us, everybody, to do something or not do something that trips them up, right? You know what I mean? If it trips them up, like talk bad about the dopehead Joe Rogan, just talk bad about him. It diminishes him. To talk bad about the drug head, talk bad about this old music. I don't want to listen to that crap. It's like poison air. You're poisoning the air with that crap, right? It makes it go away, right? It doesn't finish it all in one spell, but but it certainly can make it. We can start to diminish it by just not accepting it, right? And you know, and we have the ability to affect our environment. We have the ability to make things not popular, and so work in that regard, right? I mean, brainwashing can be used for positive or negative. It's negative when we call it brainwashing when it's negative, but we can take the same televisions and all that stuff, and it can be showing messages that, hey, it's time to go home with your family. You know what I mean? It's time, instead of, hey, let's have a beer. You know what I mean? Let's have a beer. And, you know, the fun, all the good guys with the pretty girls, they're drinking this crap. You know what I mean? They're drinking this whiskey or whatever. You know what I mean? You could do the same exact things, and same exact television could actually be used for positive. It could be used to, hey, this is how you grow taller corn, you know what I mean, in your garden, behind your house, because you have one, don't you? You know what I mean? You know, the peer pressure would be like, you don't have a garden? What's wrong with you? You know what I mean?
Well, you know, it just blows my mind is how many people, and this sounds really corny, and I'll just preface, I have not made it in life yet. So I'm not going to pretend like I've figured out woohoo, but it's just crazy when I stop and think about how much time is spent people watching, whether it's sports, whether it's entertainment, getting consumed, taking intoxicants, and they just allocate a little of that time, they could completely change their life. I mean, completely, not to get all woohoo, cheesy, corny, but it's really dawned on me, like, it's actually pretty crazy. Like, even if you did a show and you just did one episode, it probably changed your life, or you just started reading something.
If you invited like some number of your readers, however many want to show up, and say, look, I'm going to take a walk. Wait, where are you at? I don't even know where you're at.
Me, I'm about an hour from Yosemite.
Oh, Yosemite. Good Lord, man. That's one of the most awesome places on earth. I love that place. Smells good and everything. I mean, so you got the Rocky Mountain, what's the name of that Rocky Mountain trail up there? I've forgotten. But anyway, there's all kinds of trails out there. What's that?
Oh, yeah. The Sierra Nevada mountain range.
Right. So just imagine, you could say, look, you got a lot of readers and a lot of viewers. Say, hey, let's all meet on Saturday and we're going to go for a 2-day walk, you know, camp out on Saturday night somewhere out there and just go for a walk. You know what I mean? It's just like, ain't nobody going to be at the bar because you're going to be sleeping on the ground out there somewhere. You know what I mean? And I mean, just stuff like that, make that fun, right? That's where the fun's at. And that, you know, not only that, if you want to meet a good wife, that's how you meet one, right there. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, high quality wife. She ain't at the bar. You know what I mean? She's like, I'll go for a walk out in the mountains. I'm not afraid of no bears. You know what I mean? That's like, yeah, that's how you do it. And get people doing things like that. And not only that, again, everybody is smarter than they think they are. You just have to go for these long walks and get time to sort it out, because there's a lot of stuff in your head that it takes time to sort through the boxes. And if you go through and obviously don't listen to music or anything, just go for these long walks like I did. I would walk for weeks at a time, actually. I'm not talking hours, man. I walked up to Mount Everest. I did Annapurna Circuit several times out in the Himalaya. You know, I walked to Everest twice, actually. Not to the top, just to the bottom base camp. One of the walks was 3 weeks, right? And 3 weeks to get there and 1 week back. So it was like a month, right? So, I mean, I did stuff like this a lot, and you would learn a lot just by walking. But then I actually carried books. I hired like a Sherpa to carry my books in a Pelican case, and I had candles because there was no iPads or anything like that back then. Plus iPads, I mean, that's not a great way to read anyway. But I would just go out there and walk and read by candlelight at night. Walk. Man, you will learn so much just by going for walks, and you meet a lot of cool people too.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned about walking. I've heard that as being very therapeutic. I mean, I actually do that almost daily to get my vitamin D, which I know a lot of people are deficient in. Even writing, I've heard a lot of utility in just writing. Clearing your mind. I was picking up. I've been reading a bunch of different.
You'll
I'm
learn.
sorry.
You will writing. You mean writing or writing?
Oh, yeah, writing, like actual writing.
Yeah, you'll learn by writing. You'll learn weirdly often more by writing than by reading, which is kind of
Hmm.
strange. You need to do both. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I've been. I'll just share with you. I've been very interested in the esoteric stuff, and because the cabal is really into it, right? I mean, they're really into astrology. They're really into apparently gematria and numerology, and when they do events, like you'd hear Ted Gunderson talk about this stuff. I think Jordan Maxwell did a little bit too. So I've been kind of. I mean, I'm just sharing with you personally what I've been up to. I've been kind of reading some that like kind of. I think the audio cut out. What would you mention?
No, they're huge into numerology.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And then what else? Just goal attainment, goal acquisition. But I just feel like most people, again, I'm not saying this from some vantage point of superiority. By far from that. I'm just saying it just seems like most of society is in a malaise. They're in a conveyor belt to the grave, and it's just this gradual and I feel like the guy from the movie They Live, where I'm wearing the sunglasses.
I watched that with Masako. Masako is some years ago. Masako's like, you got to watch this movie. And, you start and you're like, oh, it's corny. But everything Masako says to watch, it turns out good. So we watched it and it was great. Everybody should watch They Live. It wasn't corny. It looks corny to begin with for the first.
It's kind of hokey, but it's
But it's legit. It's like,
it
you know what I
is.
mean? It's
Yeah,
like totally
it's
legit.
probably real. A lot of these films, I suspect, just like Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut and a myriad of other movies, were intended to serve as a message. And we all know parts of that movie were apparently omitted.
Right. I would highly suggest watching that and the Jones Plantation. The Jones Plantation,
The
man,
documentary.
that's a great movie.
I gotta watch that. I believe it or not, I haven't seen it, but I've heard great things about it. Larkin Rose, right?
That was I don't know who the stars were, but I watched it several times. I don't know any of the actors' names. But yeah, but you know who told me to watch it was Doug Casey, the gold guy who just.
Oh yeah. Oh, by the way, I had him on, so thank you for making that happen. You made that happen.
He's
So
awesome.
thank
He
you for
just
doing that.
messaged this morning. Doug was like, "You got to watch this movie, The Jones Plantation." That one starts off corny too for the first couple of minutes. Like, oh, here we are in a corny movie. But if Doug recommends something, it's probably pretty good. And we watched it, and I was like, "Whoa!" So then Masako and I, we went back because we watched it with Doug and his wife. Then Masako and I went back and watched it again, and then we watched it a third time. And because there's a lot of it's a very cheap, low budget film, super low budget, like less than a used car budget. And but it is artful. It is genius. I mean, it is the Jones Plantation. You got to watch it. You might want to watch it at least twice. Yeah, the Jones play. It's like They Live. Corny, low budget, right on target. It's like
It's crazy. I'm trying to think of what else I was going to mention. Yeah, it just seems that the world is just getting weirder and weirder since 2020, and it looks like things are going to continue to accelerate. And to your point, we're looking at famine. Just to kind of recap, we're looking at further geopolitical turbulences, prices. Who knows? Who knows?
If you want to know, if you would like an introduction to the producer of Jones Plantation, I'll introduce you. His name's Andrew Triglia, and
Would love to.
That guy. I somehow I ended up in contact with him, and we talked for a long, long time, and so he's working on something else now. I'll introduce you to him when we get off.
Michael, how can people learn more about you as well as get in touch with you?
Oh, I'm on Substack. Under Big Honey. And then on Twitter as well, or X, whatever you want to call it. Basically, I just go on X to attack like Zionists doing genocide and Trump pushing drugs and you know what I mean. But I'm pretty predictable. But the stuff that you put on there, that I put on there, you'll see it's turned out to be very accurate. It's been extremely accurate over time, and I'm very happy with how my accuracy, which gets better and better as time goes on. But I realized early on that lies are expensive, expenses, and truth is an investment. But often, you take some shots when you tell the truth about certain things, and then they turn out like I lost a lot of readers by saying that Obama was, some Manchurian candidate. Everybody's like, no, yeah, oh, you're a racist, and just like the fake Semites that are always like, you're an anti-Semite. I'm like, dude, you're whiter than I am. Shut up. You know what I mean? You're a fake Jew. You're a fake everything. I don't care. You know what I mean?
Crypto, crypto Jew. Yeah.
Exactly. Show me a gene. It's like, yeah, and I don't care anyway. What are you, some kind of gene superior? God don't favor you. It's like, and they're like, ah, it's like, but
You got to
yeah,
get the garlic or the flashlight.
yeah, exactly. Here we go.
The holy water. Yeah.
Yeah. Gary the Cannibal used to say, you should wear garlic. I'm like, what, to keep the vampires away? No, because you're good with it. Yeah, Gary the Cannibal, the guy from Texas. But anyway, I'll introduce you to Andrew Triglia. He's the producer of the Jones Plantation. And I think if you end up interviewing him, I got to watch that, man. That guy, he's something else. He's kind of a live wire, so you'll want him on. You know what I mean? He's pretty, you never know what he's going to say.
Well, I love it. Well, Michael, it's been great having you back on. Really enjoyed our conversation, and I encourage people listening, if you're in a position to support Michael. By the way, Michael did not ask me to say that. I'm just saying that because to look out and support him, because I know he does a lot of traveling, and you're doing God's work, so to speak, and you're putting yourself out there. And a lot of people don't feel comfortable putting themselves out there in the way that you are. So my hat's off to anybody doing that. So thanks for doing what you do.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And we'll talk with you soon, Christian. Bye.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for tuning in. And if you enjoyed the show, I encourage you to like, share, and follow if you found value in it. I also have a new show called Markets with Christian White, which is exclusively focused on the financial markets. If that is something of interest to you, I encourage you to check that out. And I always look forward to hearing your feedback and thoughts. And until next time, take care and be well.